On the western edge of Tamriel, there's a land buried under ancient secrets and echoing with the clash of swords long gone. Most of us know this place from the Alik'r warriors we bumped into in Skyrim, or maybe from Cydia's sketchy escape story, but Hammerfell is so much more than a handful of desert fighters. It's the homeland of the Redguards, heirs to a sunken continent, the only province that told the Empire to get lost and then beat the Thalmor all on its own, and most likely, it's where Elder Scrolls VI is taking us. In this video, we're diving deep into Hammerfell. We're not just going to talk about its geography and history. We're going to unpack the tragedy behind the Yokuda migration, the centuries-old rift between the Crowns and the Forebears, the epic resistance during the Great War, and the mind-bending secrets of sword singing. After that, we'll get into the Towers theory, break down the teaser trailer, go over the latest leaks, and check out some of the wildest fan theories floating around. It's going to be a packed one, so buckle up. And like I always do, I won't just be listing off lore facts. I'll be drawing parallels to real-world history and philosophy along the way, because that's what makes the Elder Scrolls universe so special to me. This world is a mirror of our own, and that's where the magic really is. When most people hear Hammerfell, they picture a massive desert, and honestly, that's fair. Pretty much everything we heard about the place in Skyrim revolved around the Alik'r Desert. But the reality is way different. Hammerfell is actually one of the most ecologically diverse provinces in all of Tamriel. Yeah, the Alik'r sits right in the middle, and it's the biggest desert on the continent, but look past the dunes and you'll find a completely different world. Up north, along the Iliac Bay, you've got these lush coastal strips. We're talking fertile farmland where pomegranates and figs grow, with active maritime trade connecting it to High Rock. Sentinel, the province's biggest city, is the beating heart of this region. Down south, facing the Abetian Sea, there are subtropical plains, river deltas, and humid climates. Cities like Tanith, Rihad, and Hegathy are all built along these southern coasts, and to the east, the Dragontail Mountains create a natural border with Skyrim, with rugged passes, forested valleys, and cities like Dragonstar and Elenhir tucked into the highlands alongside orc strongholds and mining operations. Oh, and let's not forget Hughes Bane. If you've played Elder Scrolls Online, you know this place. It's an isolated peninsula with steep cliffs and dense forests that's been a haven for pirates and smugglers throughout history. Abaz Landing is basically the underground capital of Tamriel's criminal world. Even the Alik'r Desert itself isn't just a flat sea of sand. It's got massive dunes, rocky plateaus, oasis networks, and hidden Dwemer ruins buried in dried-up oases deep in its interior. Ancient Dwemer cities like Valenwood proved that a sophisticated industrial civilization once thrived beneath all that sand. The province's water sources are concentrated around the Urk, Nalata, and Tark rivers, which carve out corridors of life through the desert and support the agricultural production that feeds major cities like Sentinel. And here's the thing, this geographic diversity isn't just pretty scenery, it's a strategic weapon. The extreme heat and shifting sands of the Alik'r have wrecked invading armies' supply lines throughout history. Think of it like North Africa in our own world. Napoleon's Egyptian campaign, the North Africa theater in World War II, desert terrain has always been a natural fortress that favors the defender. Hammerfell has used that exact advantage to repel invaders for centuries. Todd Howard mentioning that Elder Scrolls VI will have way more trees and vegetation than Skyrim is a solid hint at this kind of diversity. Hammerfell isn't just desert, and I really hope the game shows us that in all its glory. To really understand Hammerfell, you need to know where the Redguard people came from. And that story starts far from Tamriel, on a continent to the west that no longer exists, Yokuda. Yokuda was once home to an advanced civilization with its own systems of government, religion, and culture. It was the birthplace of sword singing, home to the Anshe orders, and ruled by kings and priests who had built a sophisticated society. But sometime around the year 792 of the First Era, the entire continent sank into the ocean after some kind of catastrophic event. Fan theories point to the Pankrato sword, a forbidden sword-singing technique, as the cause, but we'll get to that later. The bottom line is, Yokuda went under and the survivors set sail east toward Tamriel. This wave of migrants became known as the Ra-Gada, the warrior wave. That's actually where the word Redguard comes from. It's just a corrupted version of Ra-Gada that evolved over time. And these weren't just desperate refugees looking for safety. They were a highly disciplined, ruthless military force. They first landed on the island of Herne, where they completely wiped out the native Nedic population. Then they pushed onto the mainland, sweeping aside Breton settlements, giant flint-toothed goblins, and whatever else stood in their way. Just like that, these lands became the new homeland of the Redguard people. I gotta pause here and draw a real-world parallel, because this is basically the migration period on steroids. Think about the Germanic tribes flooding into the Roman Empire under pressure from the Huns. They weren't just wandering around aimlessly. They were organized, militarized, and they reshaped the entire political map of Europe. The Ragada did the exact same thing to Western Tamriel, a survival-driven migration backed by serious military firepower. But here's a crucial detail that sets up everything that comes after. The people who fled Yakuta weren't one unified group. There were two distinct classes. The Na Totambu were Yakuta's aristocratic ruling class, kings, priests, nobles. They came on the last ships after the fighting was done. The Ragada were the warrior class who did the actual conquering. They were the ones who cleared the land and made it safe. And that fundamental divide between these two groups planted the seeds for the Crown Forebear split that still defines Hammerfell politics to this day. And it's worth noting that the Redguards weren't the first to call this place home. The Dwemer were here before them, specifically the Rorken clan, who refused to join the First Council in Morrowind and migrated west. Legend says they threw their legendary hammer Volendrung across the continent and settled wherever it landed. That's how the region got the name Valenwood. On top of that, you've got remnants of Ayleid settlements like the Nalata ruins and the original Nedic clans who lived here before anyone else showed up. Hammerfell is basically layer upon layer of civilizations stacked on top of each other, an archaeological goldmine. Understanding Hammerfell's political landscape is understanding the soul of the province. The Crown Forebear divide isn't just some political squabble, it's a deep ideological chasm that's been shaping this place for centuries. The Crowns are the direct descendants of the Na Totambu, Yakuta's old ruling class. They're the traditionalists. They want to preserve Yokudan culture, religion, and language in its purest form. Instead of worshipping the Empire's 8 divines, they follow the Yokudan pantheon: Sadakal the World Serpent, Ruptka, also known as Tal Papa, Tuwaka, and others. Sadakal's story is particularly fascinating. This is an entity that devours everything and gives birth to it all over again, an endless cycle of destruction and creation. The Crowns are deeply suspicious of outside influences and push for Hammerfell's isolation from the rest of Tamriel. Hegede is their cultural and historical stronghold. The Forebears are the polar opposite. Descended from the Ragada warriors who actually conquered the land, they were the first to interact with the native populations of Tamriel, and over time they adapted to Imperial and Breton cultures. They're pro-trade, cosmopolitan, and way more integrated with the outside world. Even their religion is a blend. They accept Akatosh as a reflection of Sadakal, merging Imperial divines with Yokudan gods. That pragmatic, syncretic approach pretty much sums up the Forebear mindset. Sentinel is their power base and the hub of international commerce. If you want a real-world comparison, think of Japan during the Meiji Restoration. You had the traditionalists who wanted to hold on to the old samurai way of life, and you had the reformers who saw modernization and Western engagement as the only path to survival. Or think of Turkey during its founding. The tension between preserving Ottoman-era traditions and embracing a secular, Western-oriented republic. That's the Crown Forebear dynamic in a nutshell. Both sides have legitimate arguments. The Crowns want to protect their identity. The Forebears argue that adaptation is necessary for survival. This tension has shown up in every era of Hammerfell's history. In the Third Era, a guy named King Loten tried to bridge the gap with what became known as the Low Tunic movement, a third way that respected both factions' values while prioritizing Hammerfell's unity above all else. It gained real momentum after the warp in the West and managed to create a fragile peace. But the real unification? That was going to take an outside threat. Just like in Skyrim, it took a common enemy to melt away centuries of internal division, at least for a while. The Fourth Era represents both Hammerfell's darkest chapter and its proudest moment. And it all started with a treaty we all know too well, the White Gold Concordat. In Fourth Era 171, the Great War erupted when the Aldmeri Dominion launched a devastating assault on the Empire. Thalmor armies pushed all the way into the heart of Cyrodiil, and the Imperial city fell. When it was all over, the White Gold Concordat was signed in Fourth Era 175, a peace treaty where the Empire accepted the Thalmor's brutal terms just to survive. For Skyrim, the most infamous clause was the Talisman. But for Hammerfell, there was something even worse. The Empire agreed to hand over Hammerfell's southern territories to the Aldmeri Dominion. The Redguards flatly refused. They were not about to let someone else give away their land at a negotiating table they weren't even sitting at. Think about that for a second. Someone else is carving up your homeland without your consent. So Emperor Titus Mede II, trying to keep the peace deal intact, officially cut Hammerfell loose from the Empire. Let me put that more bluntly. The Empire abandoned Hammerfell, left them to fend for themselves, and the Red Guards rightly saw this as a massive betrayal. After centuries of fighting and bleeding under the Imperial banner, they were cast aside the moment things got tough. That's a level of disloyalty that's hard to forgive, and honestly, I don't think they should have to. But here's where the Red Guard spirit of never backing down kicked in. Without Imperial support, completely on their own, they fought an asymmetric war against the Thalmor for 5 straight years. And during this struggle, something remarkable happened. The Crowns and Forebears, who had been at each other's throats for centuries, put their differences aside and united against the common enemy. The shared threat did what no king or movement had managed to do. It brought Hammerfell together. And in 4th Era 180, the Second Treaty of Stros-Mackay was signed, forcing the Aldmeri Dominion to withdraw from Hammerfell entirely. Hammerfell became the only power in Tamriel to beat the Thalmor on its own. That victory came at an enormous cost. The southern coastline, especially cities like Tanith and Rihad, was devastated. But by the time Skyrim's story takes place in 4th Era 201, Hammerfell had become arguably the most stable province in Tamriel. While the Empire was drowning in internal conflicts and Skyrim was tearing itself apart with civil war, Hammerfell was standing on its own 2 feet as an independent, relatively stable nation. Sure, Orc independence movements and the lingering Dominion threat to the south kept things tense, but compared to the dumpster fire the Empire was dealing with, Hammerfell was doing all right. As I've said in previous videos, I genuinely believe that Tamriel's path out of chaos runs through independent, strong kingdoms rather than a crumbling empire. Hammerfell is the living proof of that. The Imperial model might have run its course, and Hammerfell's success should serve as inspiration for the rest of Tamriel, Skyrim included. Hammerfell isn't just important politically and militarily, it holds a massive place in the Elder Scrolls universe on a metaphysical level too. And the biggest reason for that is an ancient martial art inherited from Yakuta, sword singing. The masters who reached the absolute peak of sword singing are called the Ansei, the Sword Saints. These warriors could manifest a piece of their very soul as a physical sword. This spirit blade is called the Shei-Hai. At first, it's just a form made of light, not really solid. But in the hands of a true Ansei, it becomes sharper than any real weapon, resistant to magic, and devastatingly powerful. To form a Shei-Hai, you need to pass through 4 gates: discipline, commitment, wisdom, and sacrifice. This isn't something you just pick up over a weekend. We're talking years of training and spiritual maturity. Now here's where things get really wild. There's a forbidden technique in Redguard mythology called the Pankratos Ord, and it's supposedly what caused Yakuta to sink. This technique gives the user the ability to cut through the smallest building blocks of reality itself, atoms. Let that sink in for a second, a sword strike that cuts atoms. That's basically a nuclear explosion delivered through a blade. That's why the Ansei orders declared it absolutely forbidden. The theory that this technique is what destroyed an entire continent is one of the most terrifying pieces of lore in the entire Elder Scrolls universe, if you ask me. A sword technique that can send a whole continent to the bottom of the ocean. It's not hard to see why they banned it. There's a really important connection I need to point out here. Sword singing operates on the same fundamental principles as the Nord's Thum and the Dwemer's tonal architecture. All 3 disciplines work by altering the fundamental notes or vibrations of the universe to bend reality. The Nords do it with their voice. When you shout Fus Roda, you're actually manipulating the fabric of the universe through sound. The Dwemer did it with machines. Their tonal architecture could reshape matter and reality itself. And the Redguards do it with the sword. Through the movements of the blade and the warrior, they tap into that same cosmic principle. 3 different peoples, 3 different methods, but at its core, it's the same metaphysical intervention. That connection shows just how consistent and deep the Elder Scrolls cosmology really is. In Elder Scrolls VI, there's a very strong chance sword singing could show up as a gameplay mechanic similar to Skyrim's shout system. Imagine this. Instead of learning dragon words, you're developing your Shei-Hai. That would bring something completely new to the series and organically tie Hammerfell's lore into the actual gameplay. In the Elder Scrolls universe, the towers are metaphysical pillars that hold up Mundus, the mortal plane. Each tower has a stone, and when that stone is deactivated, the tower loses its function. Think of them like the load-bearing columns of a building. Pull them out one by one, and the structure holds for a while, but eventually, it collapses. And here's where the Thalmor's true endgame comes in. They want to deactivate every single tower, unmake the mortal world entirely, and return elven souls to their divine status. Yeah, you heard that right. the Thalmor aren't just a political faction, they're a metaphysical threat to the existence of reality itself. And when you look at the current state of things, the picture is pretty grim. Red Tower in Morrowind went offline after the Red Year disaster. White Gold Tower in Cyrodiil is damaged or inactive after the Amulet of Kings was destroyed during the Oblivion Crisis. Crystal Tower in Summerset was destroyed during the Oblivion Crisis too. Snowthroat in Skyrim is listed as sundered, and the Orichalc Tower in Yokuda sank with the continent. That leaves one active tower, the Adamantine Tower, also known as Adamantia or the Dureni Tower. And where is it? Right on the border between Hammerfell and High Rock on Balfira Island in the Iliac Bay. This is the tower where the Aedra held the convention and established the rules of linear time. The zero stone inside it is the physical seal of the moment Mundus was created. Every other tower in existence was built as an imitation of this one. So the Adamantine isn't just a tower, it's the foundation that reality itself rests on. The Thalmor targeting this tower is the strongest candidate for Elder Scrolls VI main storyline. The player spending the entire game trying to protect the Adamantine Tower would mean we're not just fighting for Hammerfell, we're fighting for the survival of all of Mundus. In Skyrim, we stopped Alduin and saved the world from destruction. But this time, the stakes are way higher. We're not talking about the end of the world, we're talking about the end of existence itself. This could be the biggest bet the series has ever made. The short teaser trailer from 2018 backed up the Hammerfell theory in a big way. The camera angle looks out toward the Iliac Bay. The coastline closely matches the Hammerfell shores between Tanith and Rihad. The distant castle ruins might be Azra's Crossing, tied to Azra Nightwielder, the creator of shadow magic. Even the birds in the trailer were identified as gull species native to Hammerfell's climate rather than Skyrim's northern Felsad terns. And then there's the Starfield Easter egg. Fans discovered that scratches on a ship cockpit in the Starfield trailer line up almost perfectly with the Iliac Bay coastline on Tamriel's map. Bethesda's been dropping hints for years. As for recent developments, the leaks coming out in 2025 and 2026 are pretty exciting. Multiple credible sources are confirming that the game takes place in Hammerfell and likely High Rock as well. According to these leaks, the game will feature naval battles and a shipbuilding system inspired by Starfield. That makes total sense given Hammerfell's massive coastline and the Iliac Bay. There's also talk of underwater exploration, explorable islands, 12 or 13 major cities, a class-free progression system that's way more flexible, and fortress and village building mechanics. Todd Howard himself has confirmed in recent interviews that the majority of Bethesda is now working on Elder Scrolls VI. He said the game is progressing well, but will still need to wait a while. He even admitted he regrets announcing it so early. Interestingly, he mentioned wanting to potentially shadow drop it the way they did with the Oblivion Remastered. Just drop it out of nowhere. Whether Microsoft would actually let him do that with a game this massive is another question entirely. But one thing's clear. The studio is fully committed to this project, and the day we've all been waiting for is getting closer. How close? Nobody knows, but it's coming. Let's wrap up this section with some of the most interesting fan theories out there. The first one suggests that the player character starts the game as a prisoner in a secret Thalmor laboratory near the Hammerfell border. The idea is that the Thalmor have been experimenting on prisoners, trying to artificially revive the ancient power of sword singing, and our character is the only successful test subject to survive. This would give us a clean narrative explanation for why our character has a unique power, kind of like how being Dragonborn worked in Skyrim. The second big theory revolves around the Shezoraini concept. The idea here is that the effects of Lorkhan's heart, which was released during the events of Morrowind, are still rippling through the world, and the player character is actually an incarnation of Lorkhan himself. In this scenario, our character was born with a divine essence and is the only being capable of standing against the Thalmor's metaphysical assault on reality. This theory sits on some seriously deep lore foundations, and if it pans out, it could take the series' cosmological narrative to its absolute peak. And then there's the shadow magic theory. The idea is that Azra Nightwielder's legacy, shadow magic, could be introduced as a secondary power system similar to Shouts in Skyrim. This power could let players see alternate possibilities of reality or temporarily bend time. The Azra's Crossing reference in the trailer gives this theory some extra weight. Obviously, all of this is speculation, but the Elder Scrolls community has historically been pretty good at calling these things. And that brings us to the end of another one. We covered a lot of ground today. Hammerfell is a province that pulls me in deeper every time I research it. There's the story of a people who fled a sinking continent and then refused to surrender their new homeland to anyone. We saw how centuries of division between crowns and forebears melted away when a common enemy showed up. We explored the terrifying forbidden techniques of sword singing that can literally cut atoms, and we looked at how the adamantine tower might hold the key to all of reality. If you want my personal take, I'm incredibly hyped about Hammerfell being the setting for Elder Scrolls VI. Skyrim gave us snowy mountains and the harsh culture of the Nords. Hammerfell promises something completely different. Deserts, subtropical coasts, naval warfare, and potentially the deepest metaphysical storyline the series has ever attempted. The Redguard's never-back-down attitude is going to be an epic source of motivation for players in the dark atmosphere of the Fourth Era. And if the Towers theory ends up being the main storyline, we won't just be deciding the fate of one province this time, we'll be deciding the fate of all of Mundus. That's an even bigger deal than the Alduin threat in Skyrim, and honestly, I think the Elder Scrolls series was always building toward this. The stakes have been escalating with every game, and now existence itself is on the line. So, what do you think? Would you want the Towers theory to be the main storyline, or are you hoping for something different? What are your thoughts on sword singing as a game mechanic? Drop all of that in the comments. Your ideas are always incredibly valuable to me and play a huge role in shaping future videos. Hammerfell's history echoes in every grain of sand and every swing of the sword, echoes of Yakuta that have never fully faded. And with Elder Scrolls VI, those echoes are about to be heard across the entire continent once again. Until that day comes, we'll keep exploring this universe together. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you want to support the channel, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, welcome back. When the Elder Scrolls VI trailer dropped, I was a college student with a beard that had just started coming in. Now I'm 30 years old. I've got a job, a marriage, and a YouTube channel where I talk to you about Elder Scrolls. As you can see, a lot has changed in all of our lives since Elder Scrolls VI was announced, but none of us have actually laid eyes on the 6th game in the series yet. Not yet, anyway. I gotta say though, this is exactly what fandom is all about. A game we get more attached to the longer we wait. That said, like all of you, I'm pretty annoyed that Bethesda has dragged this thing out for so long and kept us hanging for years on end. I just wish their marketing strategy had been a bit smarter, that the trailer had dropped closer to the actual release. Anyway, this game's going to land in our laps eventually, and we're going to play it into the ground. So let's focus on what we actually know about it and do a little brainstorming while we're stuck in this waiting phase. As you probably know, there's one big expectation in the community. Elder Scrolls VI is going to take place in Hammerfell and High Rock. That's not confirmed, but what we saw in the trailer plus the occasional rumors and leaks back this theory up pretty solidly. Sure, Bethesda might pull a surprise on us, but since this is the strongest theory we've got, I'm running with it. In my last video, I broke down Hammerfell from every angle. From the Yokudan migration to the Ragata warriors, from the Crown and Forebear feud to the Ansi sword singers, all the way to the metaphysical significance of the Adamantine Tower. We covered a lot of ground. If you haven't watched it yet, I recommend you check it out because today's video is basically its twin sibling. Ever since the trailer dropped, there have always been two big contenders on the table. We talked about Hammerfell. Now it's time for the other big one. Today we're going to put the province of High Rock under the microscope from every angle. From the Bretons' origins in these ancient lands, to the current political picture during Skyrim's timeframe, to the Adamantine Tower's place in the very fabric of reality, to why this province is such a critical candidate for Elder Scrolls VI. I'm gonna dig into all of it. I'll also spend plenty of time on fan theories, because honestly, sometimes the theories the community puts together are more satisfying than Bethesda's official statements. I've split the video into 5 main sections. In the first, we'll look at High Rock's geography and why it sits in such a strategic spot. In the second, we'll start at the Dawn Era and work our way through the Durrani hegemony, the birth of the Bretons, and weird historical moments like the Warp in the West. In the third, we'll focus on what's happening during Skyrim's timeframe, the political landscape, the knightly orders, and the hidden powers in the province. In the fourth, we'll dig into the TES VI trailer, the clues we've found, and especially the Towers theory. And in the fifth, we'll try to predict what the next game might look like through fan theories, and at the end, I'll share my own personal expectations with you. One more thing I should add, I'm going to share some pretty strong personal opinions throughout this video. If you don't feel the same way or you see things differently, definitely let me know in the comments. The whole beauty of this kind of discussion is the clash of different perspectives. If you're ready, then let's head out to the foggy cliffs of Tamriel's northwestern corner. Enjoy the video. Let's start with the basics. When we say high rock, what should come to mind first? Well, the name kind of gives it away. It sits in the northwestern corner of the Tamriel continent, in a region where steep cliffs, foggy valleys, and seas all come together. To the east, you've got Skyrim's snowy mountains, and to the southeast, Hammerfell's deserts and rugged highlands stretch out. To the north, the icy waters of the Sea of Ghosts pound the coast, while the south is wrapped by the Iliac Bay, arguably Tamriel's most strategic waterway. Now stop and think for a second. Does this layout sound familiar at all? It should, because the map of High Rock has always reminded me of a kind of mashup of Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. Basically a northwestern European island. And it's not just the geography, the architecture, the culture, even the folklore back this impression up. Keep that in the back of your mind because we'll come back to it in the 5th section. There's a really interesting debate going on about Breton cultural identity. There's a massive spine that splits the province in half, the Hrothgarian Mountains. These mountains aren't just a geographical obstacle. They directly shape the region's climate, its transportation routes, and its defensive strategies. In the impassable mountain passes and hidden valleys, orc tribes have made their home, so it's no coincidence Orsinium has historically been founded in this region. The interior of High Rock acts as a natural fortress and refuge for the orcs. We can break the province down into 5 main regions. Let's run through them quickly. First up, Glenumbra. This is the western peninsula of the province. Ancient forests, swamps, and rugged coastlines. The city of Daggerfall sits right at its heart. Daggerfall is arguably the most established political center the Bretons have. Second, Stormhaven. This is the fertile trade basin on the northern shore of Iliac Bay, where the Builse River meets the sea. The city of Wayrest is here. In short, Stormhaven is the center of trade, diplomacy, and prosperity. Third, Rivenspire, the Gothic dark face of the north. Steep cliffs, foggy valleys, old crumbling castles. Shornhelm and Northpoint are the major cities here. This is the eeriest, most mystical feeling part of High Rock. Fourth, Bankarai, the pass region on the border with Hammerfell. Historically, it's been a buffer between the two provinces, and also a strategic line of defense against the Reachmen. The city of Evermore sits here. Fifth, and finally, Hrothgar, the heart of those impassable Hrothgarian mountains I just mentioned. Harsh climate, brutal terrain, the homeland of the orcs. Different incarnations of Orsinium have been built in this region, destroyed over and over, rebuilt over and over. So what we call High Rock is actually anything but a single, uniform landscape. It's a rich mosaic made up of 5 completely distinct regions. When you think about it from a game design perspective, this kind of variety hands Bethesda an incredibly fertile pool of material to work with. Take a game world we're used to seeing, Skyrim's snowy mountains, Cyrodiil's forested hills, and now layer in regions with totally different vibes, Gothic Rivenspire, foggy and mystical Glenumbra, cosmopolitan Wayrest, the rugged and harsh Hrothgar. Think about how different Velen, Skellige, and Toussaint feel in Witcher 3. Bethesda could pull off the same kind of variety. Honestly, given where game technology is today, this is exactly what I'm expecting from Bethesda. I also want to specifically highlight Iliac Bay, because we're going to keep coming back to it throughout this video. Iliac Bay isn't just a body of water. This bay, sitting between the facing coastlines of High Rock and Hammerfell, is the beating heart of trade, naval warfare, piracy, and cultural exchange. Daggerfall dominates one side, while Sentinel looks across at the bay from the opposite shore. Geopolitically, Iliac Bay is the pulse of northwestern Tamriel. The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, released back in 1996, took place right around this bay region, and it featured one of the biggest maps in gaming history. I'm underlining this detail because it's going to come back up in sections 4 and 5. I think we've got a pretty good handle on High Rock's geography by now. By the way, you can actually experience these lands yourself in Elder Scrolls Online. That's where most of the footage I'm using as reference in this video comes from. It might not be my favorite province, but I've always had a soft spot for the variety of textures High Rock has to offer. Now we can move on to the region's history, but this isn't just any old history. High Rock's past stretches all the way back, in a very literal sense, to the creation of Tamriel itself. In fact, here's something that might surprise some of you. The structure that Mundus, the mortal world, owes its existence to is believed to sit right here in this province. Let's go back to the Dawn era. I want to give you a quick refresher on what this era was actually like, because you can't really grasp the importance of the towers without it. The Dawn era was a time when time itself wasn't yet linear, when reality hadn't fully solidified. The divine beings we call the Idra agreed to create the mortal world, partly because Lorcan tricked them into it, and partly for a bunch of other reasons. But in the process of creating it, they also lost a huge chunk of their own divine power. When that process wrapped up, the great gathering known as the Convention took place. The Idra decided to punish Lorcan and tore out his heart, hurling it down onto Tamriel. And the place where the Convention happened? The Adamantine Tower on the Isle of Balfiera. Sitting on a small island in Iliac Bay off the southern coast of High Rock, this structure is considered the oldest building in the universe. It's also known as Direni Tower. This tower is the first nail driven into reality. It's the Tower, the original blueprint that every other tower, Red Mountain, White Gold, Crystal Lakelaw, was modeled after. I'm hammering this point because the Adamantine Tower isn't just an old building. It's an ontological structure holding Mundus's existence in place. It forms the backbone of Tamriel and, frankly, of all reality. Once we fully appreciate how important this is, our Towers theory discussion in Section 4 is going to make a lot more sense. Quick aside here. There are people who don't buy into the Towers theory or who think it's been blown out of proportion. But the trajectory of the previous games, the fact that some tower-grade structure ends up damaged in every single one of them, only strengthens my belief in this theory. The Aldmeri Dominion really might be executing this plan one step at a time. Anyway, let's not get sidetracked for now. After the Dawn era, we move into the Merethic era. In this period, a group of Altmer known as the Direni clan crossed the seas from the Summerset Isles, the same islands that today form the heart of the Aldmeri Dominion, and settled in High Rock. The Direni took control of the Adamantine Tower and established their dominance over the region, a period that became known as the Direni hegemony. And what did they do with that power? They ruled over the local Nedic human tribes for centuries, millennia even. The Direni didn't outright enslave the Needs. They more or less allowed them to live as second-class citizens, though some of you might just call that slavery, full stop. Either way, in this system, the elves were always the ones ruling, judging, and teaching magic. Here's where things get strange. Over hundreds of years of living side by side, a serious genetic and cultural mixing happened between the elves and the humans. Direni nobles took local women as concubines, and over time these unions produced a new race. They called them Manmer, meaning human-elf hybrid. What we call the Bretons today is, quite literally, exactly that. It's said that the Aldmer-rooted form of the word Breton actually means half, because they really are half human, half elf. You can see this trait even in Skyrim. Bretons get a 50% natural resistance to magic. That's a gift straight from their elven blood. Let me bring up something that bothers me here. The fact that Bretons don't really look that different visually from humans is, lore-wise, kind of a problem. Because in the early Breton illustrations, they're depicted as taller than Imperials, with sharper cheekbones, more delicate fingers, longer limbs, because, they're half-elf. But in the games, we see them as your run-of-the-mill medieval knights and nobles. It even gets hard to tell them apart from regular humans. We'll come back to this in Section 5. Like I mentioned, there's an interesting debate about this going on among fans. The Direni hegemony hit its peak in the First Era. They got so powerful that they outgrew High Rock. They expanded into the western parts of Skyrim and the north of Hammerfell. But the more powerful you get, the more enemies you make. Around that same time, the Alessian Order was rising in Cyrodiil, and they had a fierce hatred for elves. In the year First Era 482, the Alessian armies marched on the Glenumbria moors, and one of the key battles in history played out right there. The Direni won the battle, but the victory drained them so completely that their military strength was essentially used up. And right at this point, the Bretons, who had mostly been in the background, started slowly stepping forward. The Direni couldn't govern the whole region anymore, and the Bretons took over through trade, diplomacy, and gradual assimilation. Cities like Daggerfall, Wayrest, and Camlorn fell into Breton hands not through bloodshed, but through economic and demographic dominance. So basically, the Durenni ended up at the mercy of a demographic shift they couldn't control. Pretty ironic when you think about the socio-political situation in our world today, isn't it? Throughout the Second and Third eras, High Rock developed this strange political setup. Hundreds of tiny kingdoms, duchies, baronies, fiefdoms, basically, were constantly competing with and warring against each other. At one point, the Cumberland dynasty ruled over a huge chunk of the continent before collapsing. The Riemann Empire came and went. Then Tiber Septim founded his empire in the Third era, and High Rock, like all the other provinces, fell under his banner. But here's where things get genuinely interesting. Some of you might have experienced this firsthand by playing the second game in the series. In Third Era 417, an event called the Warp in the West happened. To put it briefly, this was a dragon break. The linear flow of time broke down, and 7 major powers all simultaneously took control of Numidium, that massive Dwemer automaton. When the event ended, the hundreds of tiny kingdoms in High Rock had somehow merged, leaving 4 main political centers: Daggerfall, Wayrest, Sentinel, and Orsinium. Overnight, High Rock's political map was completely rewritten. This event is one of the strangest things to ever be accepted as canon, and it's still being debated. If you haven't played The Elder Scrolls The Seku Daggerfall, my recommendation is to dig into this event in depth. Because at this exact moment, Bethesda pulled off one of the most creative narrative solutions in video game history. Now, we get to the period that's most familiar to us, 4th era, the year Skyrim takes place. So what's the state of High Rock at this point? Honestly, not as strong as it looks on the surface. On paper, it seems like one of the most loyal and stable provinces left in the Empire. But from what we can tell, things behind the scenes are way messier. First, we have to talk about the Great War. I covered this in my Hammerfell video too. The war between the Aldmeri Dominion and the Empire was the last great conflict in Tamriel's history. The Thalmor attacked, Cyrodiil was sacked, the Empire was rattled. And in the end, the White Gold Concordat was signed. Under that treaty, Talos worship was banned, and the Empire was forced to hand over a big chunk of Hammerfell to the Thalmor. But the people of Hammerfell wouldn't accept that. They broke away from the Empire and kept fighting the Dominion on their own, and in the end, they won. So, what does this mean for High Rock? Actually, it's a pretty big deal. With Hammerfell breaking away from the Empire, High Rock physically lost its land bridge to Cyrodiil. So, if it wants to reach the Imperial capital now, it has to go either by sea or through Hammerfell territory. Cutting through northern Skyrim is theoretically possible too, but that route isn't exactly safe either. So even though High Rock is still loyal to the Empire, in practice, it's become a semi-isolated, island-like province. On top of that, the Bretons, along with the Nords, took serious casualties during the Great War. At the Battle of the Red Ring, the critical battle where the Imperial capital was retaken, Breton legions fought on the front lines and lost a lot of men. They bled for the Empire. And what did they get in return? A semi-isolated position and an uncertain future. Now, watching Hammerfell's victory, the kings of High Rock are naturally asking themselves, should we break from the Empire too? Can the Empire actually protect us? But we shouldn't forget, economically, High Rock is in better shape than Hammerfell and Skyrim. That puts them in a more stable position compared to the 2 provinces on either side, which is why, during Skyrim, we don't really hear about any uprisings or unrest in High Rock. As if all that wasn't enough, in 4th Era 188, Wayrest got sacked. Pirates stormed the city, slaughtered people, looted its wealth. Wayrest used to be the symbol of Breton prosperity and pride, and the pirates absolutely brought it to its knees. This event shattered the province's safe and prosperous image. Even the Dark Brotherhood had to abandon their sanctuaries in Wayrest during this period. Things were genuinely bad. And there's also the ongoing Orsinium situation that's been dragging on for centuries. Near the end of the Third Era, Orsinium was on track to become an officially Empire-recognized province. For the first time in centuries, the Orcs were getting their own homeland. But the celebration didn't last. At the start of the 4th Era, a joint Breton and Redguard offensive destroyed Orsinium again. Honestly, I've stopped counting how many times they've been wiped out. But it's hard not to feel for the Orcs at this point. Right now, there are rumors that what's being called the Fourth Orsinium is being rebuilt, but not in its original location. It's being put together in the mountainous area on the Skyrim-Hammerfell border. So this could end up being one of our concerns in the 6th game. Now let's get to the political picture. High Rock politics gets called aristocratic anarchy, which is honestly a perfect term. What does that mean? Think of it this way. There's no single ruler officially in charge of the province. Each major city, Daggerfall, Wayrest, Shornhelm, Evermore, Northpoint, is its own kingdom. Each one has its own claim, its own agenda, its own scheme cooking. Between them, you've got constant power shifts, alliances flipping, marriages joining houses together, betrayals tearing them apart. So picture a Game of Thrones vibe, just on a much smaller scale and constantly running. Honestly, this gives game designers a really rich pool to work with. Imagine, as a player, getting involved in a war between Daggerfall and Wayrest, getting tangled up in royal intrigue, maybe even establishing your own little barony. There's an old saying in High Rock, "Find a new hill, become a king." It's a beautiful line, and it pretty much sums up the entire province. It's not just kings shaping the politics either. Other powers have plenty of say too. I definitely have to talk about the knightly orders. In High Rock society, knighthood isn't just a title. It's almost a social necessity. The sons and daughters of the aristocracy who can't inherit join these orders to carve out a noble place for themselves. The Knights of the Dragon are Daggerfall's official protectors. The Knights of the Flame guard Alcaire Castle. The Order of St. Piline has sworn to defend Bankarai Pass. The Order of the Raven made their name in the war against the Cameron usurper and specializes in fighting dark forces. And the Knights of the Rose handle security for the Wayrest court and the trade routes. These orders all have their own hierarchies and rivalries with each other, and that has huge potential for game mechanics. And then there are the invisible forces, the Witch and Mage covens. High Rock has one of the highest mage populations in all of Tamriel. The Beldama word is an ancient coven of female witches who live in the Glenumbra forests and commune with nature's spirits. The Glenmoral witches operate along the Skyrim High Rock border and are an unsettling clan with strong ties to Hircine. If you remember the companion's questline in Skyrim, you'll know the Glenmoral witches. And there are also the Dureni mage lords, descendants of the original Dureni line who still live on the Isle of Balfiera and guard ancient elven magic. So High Rock isn't just a political arena, it's also a magical laboratory. Just look at how much content we're getting out of a single province. All right, we've made it to the most exciting section. Now we're really turning on the stage lights and starting to look at Elder Scrolls 6. In June 2018, Bethesda dropped a short but legendary teaser. Just 30 seconds, showing nothing but a single landscape. Steep cliffs, a foggy valley, a sea, and a coastline visible in the distance. And then the words, "The Elder Scrolls 6" appeared. That was it. And ever since that day, the Elder Scrolls community has been combing through every single pixel of that trailer, trying to figure out where the game's going to be set. Some folks are pulling out sextants to study the position of the sun. Others are comparing rock formations to the existing map of Tamriel. Imagine a community doing this for 8 years straight. Honestly, you've got to respect it. Now let's look at the actual clues in the trailer. First up, those steep cliffs and foggy valleys. The landscape we see lines up perfectly with what the name High Rock implies. Second, the massive crater you see on the left, with the ruined fortress next to it. A lot of fans have read this as either Azra's Crossing or Valenwood, near the Hammerfell border. When I say Azra's Crossing, I'm talking about the giant crater left behind by the ancient mage Azra Nightwielder, who fought against shadow copies of himself and created that crater in the process. It could be a center where shadow magic is studied. Third, the way the camera glides in over the sea toward the land. That movement has always reminded me of an aerial view over Iliac Bay. Picture it, just like the opening of the Daggerfall game back in 1996. There are clues beyond the trailer too. The images Bethesda artists have been pinning on Pinterest are an important source. People have spotted pins of European castles, Scotland-style landscapes, knight armor designs, ship designs, and sailing mechanics. This points to both visual prep work for High Rock and a possible advanced sailing system in the game. There's an even more interesting detail. In Starfield, a likely Elder Scrolls 6 Easter egg was spotted in one of the cockpits, and the geographical references there point to the Hammerfell High Rock border, so Bethesda hasn't exactly held back on the hints. Alright, now we're getting to the main event, the Towers theory. We're in the deep end of the lore now. If you remember, I talked about the Adamantine Tower in Section 2, the ontological structure that holds Mundus's existence in place. But is the Adamantine Tower the only one of its kind? No. During the Dawn era, the Aedra, or whoever was inhabiting Tamriel back then, placed several more towers across the continent to stabilize reality. Red Mountain in Morrowind, White Gold Tower in Cyrodiil, Crystal Lake Law in Summerset, Snowthroat in Skyrim, the Adamantine Tower in High Rock. These are the nails of reality, structures that pin Mundus's existence into the world. Now let's think about what's happened. What went down at Red Mountain? The Tribunal used Lorkhan's heart at Red Mountain to ascend to godhood. Then during the Akulakhan crisis, the climax of the third game, the heart of Lorkhan was destroyed and the Tribunal lost their divinity. Bardau, the meteor Vivek had been holding up in the sky, came crashing down onto Vardenfell. After that, Red Mountain erupted, and Vardenfell was devastated. So Red Mountain's metaphysical function basically came to an end. I covered all this in detail in my Vivek and Amalexia videos. If you haven't watched them, I'd recommend checking them out. What about White Gold Tower? At the end of the Oblivion Crisis, Martin Septim transformed into the avatar of Akatosh, defeated Mehrunes Dagon, and afterward, the Amulet of Kings at the top of White Gold Tower shattered. The Septim line, which was bound by dragon blood, came to an end, and White Gold Tower's metaphysical function weakened along with it. On top of that, the ban on Talos worship pretty much rendered this tower non-functional. What about Crystal Lake Law? It was damaged during the Oblivion Crisis too. And after that, with the rise of the Aldmeri Dominion, the Thalmor took control of it. The state of that tower is still up for debate. Snowthroat? The civil war in Skyrim and Alduin's return are believed to have weakened that one as well. Since we still don't know the exact outcome of everything that went down in Skyrim, I'd say this tower's status is questionable too. So which tower's still the strongest? Most intact one left standing, the Adamantine Tower. Meaning almost every tower that anchors Tamriel's reality is either weakened or out of commission. Only the Adamantine Tower is still standing, and still strong. And this is exactly where the Thalmor plan at the heart of the Towers theory comes in. The Thalmor see themselves as the mortalized descendants of the Aedra. From their point of view, Lorkhan created Mundus and dragged the elven gods down into mortality, stripping them of their original divine state. The Thalmor's ultimate goal is to destroy Mundus, to unmake reality, and return to their godly form. And the way to do that runs straight through bringing down the towers. The Thalmor are this hostile to Talos worship for a reason. Talos is an incarnation of Lorkhan, and his ascension to godhood is, from the elves' perspective, a horrific assault. If Talos worship gets banned across all of Tamriel and his godhood is undone, White Gold Tower's metaphysical function would mostly fizzle out, and the Thalmor have been taking these steps for a long time already. Now we get to the most exciting part. If the Thalmor want to pull off their plan, what does their final target have to be? The Adamantine Tower. Because this isn't just any tower, it's the Tower. The original template every other tower was based on. And underneath this tower sits a vault called the Foundation Vault, which holds the most powerful and dangerous object in the world, the Zero Stone. When Durrani nobles came of age, they would visit this stone and feel its immeasurable power for 1 second. 1 second, just one. And even that's described as a remarkable experience. There's also the Argent Aperture, an intricate door lock on the wall of the Adamantine Tower made up of 13 rotating rings. It's never been opened by mortal or immortal, not by anyone. Think about it. We're talking about a door so locked, even Daedric princes apparently haven't managed to open it. What's hidden behind it? We don't know, and that's exactly where things get mysterious and exciting. So here's the final form of the Towers theory. Elder Scrolls 6's main storyline could be built around the Thalmor trying to take control of the Adamantine Tower and the player stopping them. Maybe the Thalmor will be trying to open the Argent Aperture. Maybe they'll be after the Zero Stone. Either way, if this theory is right, the game we end up playing won't just be about Tamriel's fate, it'll be about the fate of reality itself. And as you can probably guess, that story almost has to take place in Iliac Bay, the region where High Rock and Hammerfell come together, which brings us right to our last section. Now we're at the section I've set aside for fan theories, because I have to admit, sometimes the scenarios fans cook up are tastier than whatever Bethesda's been sitting on. The first theory is the Daggerfall 2.0, or Dual Province scenario. According to this theory, Bethesda's not going to do just High Rock or just Hammerfell. They'll include a significant chunk of both, basically the whole region around Iliac Bay, on the map. This would be a kind of spiritual successor to the 1996 The Elder Scrolls Daggerfall. Like I mentioned, Daggerfall featured one of the biggest maps in gaming history, and it took place in exactly this region. With modern game tech, Bethesda's got the chance to deliver both the classic European fantasy of High Rock and the more exotic Middle Eastern and African influences of Hammerfell in a single game. And one of the big proponents of this theory, CamelWorks, has dug into the trailer in serious detail and made this theory the subject of multiple videos. I'd recommend checking out his deep dive on this. The second theory is a bit more specific, the predominantly Hammerfell scenario. According to this one, Bethesda plays it safe and basically commits to Hammerfell, only pulling in the northern shore of Iliac Bay, the city of Daggerfall and the area around it. So our gameplay experience would mostly play out in Hammerfell, but we'd still get a taste of High Rock. This is the safer game design call. Instead of making the map huge, you concentrate the content. Honestly, we can't rule out Bethesda taking this route. The games they've put out since Skyrim, especially Fallout 76, showed that sometimes Bethesda can't keep their ambition in check. Maybe they'd opt for something smaller but more polished. Whether that would actually satisfy us, though, I'm honestly not sure. The third theory, and the most interesting one to me, is this. The main story of Elder Scrolls VI will revolve around Lorkhan's return and the concept of the Shezarene. A Shezarene is a type of hero believed to be an incarnation of Lorkhan. Tiber Septim is actually thought to be one. I talked about this in my Tiber Septim video. A lot of the major heroes in Tamriel's history are believed to be Shazarenes. There's even talk of an epic scenario where a new Shazarene emerges in the 6th game, and the convention itself is reenacted at the Adamantine Tower. If that's how it goes, our character could be a new incarnation of Lorkhan, and by the end of the story they might find themselves in a position to decide Mundus's fate. What can I say? If they actually give us a story like that, being a dragonborn like Skyrim's Dovahkiin would feel small. We'd be on a whole different level. But some recent rumors have suggested that the 7th game in the series is already on Bethesda's mind. So if Bethesda is thinking about extending the series, a scenario like this feels a bit harder to pull off. Then there are the gameplay mechanic theories. Some fans think we might get naval combat and ship management in the game. For a game set in Iliac Bay, that makes a ton of sense. Imagine it. We'd have our own ship, fight pirates, discover new islands, run trade between cities along Iliac Bay. We might even get to see Hugh's Bane, the historic refuge of the Thieves Guild in the game. The idea sounds really appealing to me. Bethesda already ran some experiments along these lines in Starfield. And if you think they fumbled it there, don't worry. They're not going to make the same mistakes in the 6th game. Now let's move on to another interesting debate. This one's really popular in the fan community, but isn't exactly considered an official theory. The criticism that the Bretons are way too vanilla, too generic as a race. This critique actually makes a lot of sense to me on several levels. The people making it argued that the Bretons, as they're presented in the current games, are nothing more than your standard medieval knights and nobles. Basically, a race that just can't break out of the generic fantasy mold. But according to the lore, the Bretons are half elf, half human. They should be taller with sharper facial features, more delicate fingers, naturally inclined to magic. And the roots of High Rock culture trace back to the Celtic culture of the British Isles in our real world. Even the origin of the name is hidden here. Brittany gets its name from the Briton people who crossed the English Channel during the Anglo-Saxon invasion. The fans making this case say they want to see Celtic influences in the Bretons. Fairy-haunted forests, druids, romantic Arthurian-style myths, ancient orders of knights, witch covens, intimate folk spirits of the homeland. All of these are actually existing lore details. They've just never really shown up in the games. I find this critique both fair and pretty fascinating. The Bretons genuinely deserve a deeper identity, and Elder Scrolls VI could be the opportunity for that. Like fans have suggested, I'd honestly love to see a High Rock full of fairies, druids, and ancient Celtic mysticism, kind of like the Duchy of Toussaint in Witcher 3. What do you think? Do the Bretons need a refresh in your opinion? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure there are a lot of different takes on this. Alright, let's get to my personal expectations. If I'm being straight with you, I want Elder Scrolls VI to be a game that includes both Hammerfell and High Rock, both of them, in their full mapped form. Given today's gaming tech, I really don't think Bethesda should be thinking small for a game with this much hype attached to it. Skyrim came out in 2011, and people are still playing it. Whenever Elder Scrolls VI drops, the expectation is that it'll be a game people are playing for decades. If that's the case, it has to be that big. It has to deliver a map that rich. That said, I do think it's perfectly plausible that Bethesda goes the safer route. Maybe they'll go with just Hammerfell plus the northern shore of Iliac Bay, a small slice of High Rock than for the map. Daggerfall logic, just on a smaller scale. That wouldn't be terrible either. Because if Bethesda shrinks the map, they can ramp up the content density. Still, my heart wants more than that. At the very least, I want to see regions on the scale of Witcher 3. Witcher 3 had Velen, Skellige, and Toussaint, 3 big regions, each with its own distinct atmosphere. If Bethesda gave me 3 regions of at least that caliber, say the Hammerfell Desert, High Rock's Gothic Rivenspire coast, and the cosmopolitan Daggerfall Wayrest stretch around Iliac Bay, we could be in for a genuinely epic gaming experience. I'm convinced we're definitely going to see the Adamantine Tower in the game. The game might even partly revolve around it, and one of my expectations is that Elder Scrolls VI won't be your standard good versus evil story. It'll be shaped instead around a kind of existential resistance. This game needs to have a story at least as epic as Skyrim's, if not more. The potential that the Adamantine Tower and the Zero Stone open up gives more than enough depth to pull that off, in my opinion. I also really don't believe the 6th game will be the final one. Whether or not we'll be around to see it, I do think the series will eventually have a 7th game, but the 6th game could very well leave us in a place full of chaos. Alright guys, we've reached the end of the video. We covered High Rock from every angle, from its geography to its history, from the political landscape during Skyrim's time frame to possible scenarios for Elder Scrolls VI. We took quite a journey. I shared the importance of the Adamantine Tower with you, what the tower's theory means for the next game, the different scenarios fans have come up with, and my own personal expectations. Now I want to hear from you. Where do you think Elder Scrolls VI is going to take place? Just High Rock, just Hammerfell, or both around Iliac Bay? Do you believe the Adamantine Tower will be at the center of the main story? How do you feel about the tower's theory? Do you think the Bretons need an identity refresh, or are they fine the way they are? Let's meet up in the comments, because honestly, I learn a lot from these discussions too. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the notification bell for new content. And if the hype button shows up for you, don't forget to hype the video too. Honestly, I have no idea when Elder Scrolls VI is actually coming out. Maybe tomorrow, maybe 10 years from now. But until it does, there's so much about Tamriel we can keep talking about. There's no chance of getting bored. See you next time, and take care of yourselves. In the southwest of the continent of Tamriel, glittering like a jewel in the blue waters of the Abyssinian and Eltharic oceans, with palaces of white marble that seem to challenge the sky, an island that kept its doors shut to outsiders for thousands of years, the homeland of the High Elves, the Altmer, the place they themselves call the Blessed Isle, the Summerset Isles, the heart of the most arrogant, most obsessive, most dangerous race on the continent, a people whose pride is reflected even in the names they give their own land. This isn't just a piece of geography. This is a cosmic fault line that may decide the fate of all of Tamriel. Hey everyone, in my last few videos, I've been focusing on the regions where Elder Scrolls VI could potentially take place. I looked at the history and culture of those provinces, and I shared my thoughts with you on why those regions might show up in Elder Scrolls VI and what their potential could be. From what I saw in the comments, a few of you asked me to make a video in the same format about the Summerset Isles too. Well, I couldn't say no. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most mysterious and most dangerous provinces in all of Tamriel, the Summerset Isles, the homeland of the High Elves. And we're not going to settle for some dry history lesson either. We're going to start with the existential cosmology of the island, move through its thousands of years of bloody history, look at the real situation on the ground during the era when Skyrim takes place, get into the secret resistance groups, the unseen threats lurking in the sea, and most importantly, and honestly, this is the part I'm most excited about, the strongest fan theories the community has come up with about what could happen if the Summerset Isles ended up being the main setting of Elder Scrolls VI. There's a specific reason I'm picking this topic right now. The crumbs Bethesda has dropped about Elder Scrolls VI, that rocky desert landscape we saw in the teaser, the leaks suggesting the Yokudan tile set is half finished, the rumors about sailing and shipbuilding, all of that points us most likely toward Hammerfell. But here's the thing, and a lot of lore nerds share this view. Even a game set in Hammerfell can't escape the final showdown with the Thalmor. And sooner or later, that showdown is going to drag the player straight to the Summerset Isles, right into the heart of the enemy. Whether it's the main setting, a DLC, or the apocalyptic finale of the game, Summerset, in one form or another, has to show up in the Elder Scrolls series eventually. Before we get into it, if you're enjoying this kind of content, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Putting together these long lore videos takes a serious amount of research, and your support is honestly the only thing that keeps me motivated to make them. I've also got a couple of questions I'd love for you to answer. Where do you think Elder Scrolls VI is going to take place? How would you rate the odds of the Summerset Isles being in Elder Scrolls VI? Drop your answers in the comments. I'm waiting to hear them. Other than that, a lot of the topics I'll mention in this video I've covered in more detail in some of my earlier videos, especially the ones about the Thalmor, Talus worship, the fall of the Empire, and the Civil War. Be sure to check those out too. Alright, enjoy the video! To understand the Summerset Isles, we first have to understand the race that lives there, the Altmer. Because this island isn't just a stretch of land, it's the physical embodiment of a belief system, a philosophy of existence, and an obsession thousands of years in the making. There's one single trait that sets the High Elves apart from every other race in Tamriel, and in my opinion, it's the key to the entire story. The High Elves don't see existence as a gift. They see it as a divine prison sentence. Let's start at the very beginning, with that creation myth that absolutely reeks of the Altmer worldview and is dripping with propaganda. At the center of the Altmer belief system lies a creation myth known as the heart of the world. According to this doctrine, in the beginning there were only two principles: Anu, who is pure stasis and light, and Padome, also known as Sithis, who is pure chaos and change. Anu, in order to understand himself, created Anui-El, a reflection of his own soul. And so, that Anui-El could comprehend himself in turn, Ariel, the god of time and order, the one we know as Akatosh, came into being. With Ariel's existence, the other divine spirits, the Aedra, slowly began to take shape. But this cosmic peace didn't last. Enter Lorkhan, the most controversial figure in all of Tamrielic mythology, a trickster god to some, a hero to others, but to the Altmer, absolutely and without question, a traitor. Lorkhan deceived the Aedra. He convinced them to sacrifice a huge portion of their power to create Mundus, this physical world we're all living on right now. In the process, the Aedra were weakened, made mortal, and according to Altmer philosophy, that gradual fall turned them first into the Elnofey, then the Aldmer, and finally the Altmer, today's High Elves. And Lorkhan's betrayal didn't go unpunished. Ariel's champion Trinimac ripped out Lorkhan's heart, and when that heart was hurled into the sea, Red Mountain rose up where it landed. So what's the practical takeaway from all this mythology? This: if you look at it through an Altmer's eyes, you're not just walking around in a physical body. You're in prison. Your ancestors were gods. You are the corrupted, flesh-covered, mortalized, weakened descendant of those gods. Mundus is your prison. Lorkhan is your jailer. And if you're an Altmer, your highest goal in life is to return to Aetherius, to divine immortality, to escape this prison. This belief isn't some abstract theology. It's the foundation of all Altmer culture, politics, and even daily life. And it's also the entire reason for the Thalmor radicalism we'll be getting into later. This belief in divine origin shaped Summerset society into something incredibly rigid, elitist, and built on eugenic foundations. The Altmer claim that thanks to the genetic isolation they've maintained for thousands of years, they're the race that most closely resembles their Altmer ancestors. In the first edition of the Pocket Guide to the Empire, And let me remind you, that's a source written as imperial propaganda, so we should take it with a grain of salt. There's a famous claim that the Altmer are so fanatically obsessed with purity that they kill 9 out of every 10 babies born in order to preserve their genetic line. How much of that is true and how much is exaggeration, we can't say for sure. But it's an undeniable fact that the Altmer see breeding with a foreign race, humans especially, as an existential stain. In Tamriel, calling someone half-breed is just about a curse word to an Altmer. This obsession with perfection shaped their social structure too. Altmer society is governed by a philosophy called the Path to Alexan. Simply put, this philosophy demands one thing: every individual must achieve absolute perfection in their chosen profession. And this pursuit of Alaxan sharply defined the social hierarchy. At the very top, you've got the wise, teachers and priests. Below them, in order, come the artists, the princes, the warriors, the landowners, the merchants, and the workers. And at the very bottom of the hierarchy, and this is important, keep it in mind, are the native goblin tribes who settled the island before the elves and were enslaved by the Altmer. In my opinion, the single most telling thing about Altmer culture is this: they rank artists above warriors, meaning aesthetics are holier than military might. That's a crucial piece of data for understanding their architectural marvels, their crystal towers, their garden cities. And honestly, if you visit the Summerset Isles in Elder Scrolls Online, you can see all of this with your own eyes. On the religious side, the Altmer pantheon is made up of select Aedra figures, with Auriel at the top. Trinimac is the warrior and the champion, and he himself was later transformed into the Daedric prince Malakath, but that's another story. Syrabane is the wizard god, Finister, and this one's especially important, is the protector who taught the elves longevity. The Altmer credit Finister as the reason they can live close to 1,000 years. Xerxes is the god of secret knowledge, Magnus the god of magic and architecture. But here's what we need to pay attention to. The biggest outcast of this pantheon is Talos. I'm talking about Tiber Septim's rise to godhood as the 9th divine after his death. To an Altmer, Talos isn't just another god, he's an ontological blasphemy. A mortal man born inside Lorkhan's prison, and on top of that, an elf-slaughtering war criminal, being elevated to divine status. It shatters the entire Altmer understanding of the universe at its foundation. The banning of Talos worship isn't some shallow political move by the Thalmor, it's an existential theological necessity. Keep that in mind because it's critical for understanding the metaphysical backdrop of Skyrim's civil war. Now let's move on to the island I personally love exploring and have always admired, to its physical geography. The Summerset Isles aren't a single island. They're an archipelago made up of 14 main islands, but 3 of those islands play the leading roles. Summerset, the big main island, what the locals call the mainland; Auradon, the second largest island, the first place that was settled; and Artium, the mysterious island of the Sigic Order. These 3 islands sit in the southwestern corner of the continent, ringed by the Abyssinian Sea, the Sea of Pearls, and the Eltharic Ocean, positioned almost like a perfect fortress that nature itself built, either to cross over to the mainland or to stop any threat coming from it. Auradon is in the northeast of the archipelago, the island closest to the mainland. Geopolitically, that makes it vital. If someone from Tamriel is going to attack Summerset, they land on Auradon first. Throughout history, Auradon has served as the island's military buffer zone. The oldest city on the island, Firsthold, is here too. The name literally means First Hold, the place where the first Aldmer colony was established. Auradon is also home to defensive cities like Skywatch and Volkelgard. The main island, Summerset, is the real center of power. There are several important cities here. Let's start with the capital, Alinor. According to descriptions from human traders, which in my opinion are a bit over the top, but whatever, Alinor is a hypnotic city made of glass and insect wings, a place that catches the sun and splits it into its 7 colors. In reality, of course, it's not made of glass. It's a metropolis where white marble, gleaming metals, and crystal reflections are combined with flawless architectural mastery. But the thing behind that description matters. Altmer architecture isn't just for shelter. It's built to remind themselves and the world that they used to be gods. Every building is a monument to arrogance, reaching up toward Aetherius. Then there's Cloudrest. This city is built on the summit of Eaton Near, the tallest mountain in Summerset. Literally above the clouds, Cloudrest is home to the Welkinar Griffin Knights. These knights form a magical bond with a griffin hatchling, grow up alongside it, and eventually the griffin becomes their mount. Being a Welkinar is one of the most prestigious military titles on the island, but there's something far more mysterious underneath Cloudrest, which I'll come back to later. Deep inside that mountain, miles away from the sea, there are ancient coral remains. It's a spine-chilling fossil record proving that the island used to be underwater, or that it had far more ancient owners. The name Lilandril matters because just off its coast, on another island, sits the College of Sabiarchs. This is the intellectual heart of Summerset, maybe even the highest level academy in all of Tamriel. Kings and queens are required to complete their education here, in the labyrinth, before they take the throne. So think of it this way. It's like taking MIT and the Vatican, merging them and dropping them onto an island. Lilandril is also home to the local chapter of the Mages Guild, and there's a serious rivalry, even hostility, between these two institutions. Shimmerine is known as the City of Lights, on the eastern coast of the island, the center of culture and art. Vanus Galerian, the founder of the Mages Guild, was born here. Dusk is on the southeastern coast. Sunhold is in the southwest, and this one has the island's largest port and has historically been the first target of Mormor raids. And in the center of the island, tucked between the mountains out of sight, is Relenthil. On top of those, we could list dozens more settlements, the vineyards of Russefeld, the forest of Ebenstedmont, Karnwasten, and so on. And finally, the structure that's the entire reason this island exists, the Crystal Tower, also known as Crystal-like Law. This tower is no ordinary piece of architecture. It's one of the 8 mythical towers of Tamriel. Its name comes from the crystal inside it, called Transparent Law, a crystal said to have a metaphysical function in keeping Mundus stable. What does the Crystal Tower mean to the Altmer? That's a really important question. Think about what the white gold tower meant to the Aelids. The Crystal Tower is exactly that to the Altmer. It's not just a building. It's the symbol of a race's existence, the manifesto of an entire civilization, and at the same time, a cosmic spike pinning down the very fabric of Mundus. And last, Artaeum? This is the truly mysterious one. It lies to the south of Auradon, but even saying lies there is wrong, because Artaeum literally isn't on the physical plane of Nirn. It floats in a pocket dimension. The Psijic Order lives on it, the oldest order of mages in Tamriel, the masters of mysticism and the old ways. And the Psijic Order has one trait that, in my opinion, makes them one of the most dangerous forces in the universe. According to the rumors, they can manipulate the flow of time itself. Anyone who's played the Psijic Order skill line in Elder Scrolls Online has experienced this directly. Mechanics like time stop and rewinding through time. By the way, those are some of my favorite skills. This isn't ordinary magic, it's a cosmic level ability. And Artaeum vanished completely for 350 years, then came back for reasons nobody knows. Where they went, why they came back. These are among the greatest mysteries in all of Tamrielic history. We even see a few of their members in Skyrim during the Eye of Magnus quest. The history of the Summerset Isles isn't nearly as idyllic as an outsider might assume. The High Elves present themselves as a tamed paradise of nature, a perfect civilization. But their real history was written in blood and invasion. Throughout the First Era, the island stayed largely removed from the wars of the human kingdoms and the rise of empires on mainland Tamriel. But that didn't mean the island was at peace. Quite the opposite. Because the sea brought the threats the mainland couldn't. Let's start at the beginning. The first ones to set foot on the island were the Aldmer, the unified elven race, not yet split into Altmer, Bosmer, and Chimer. They came from the lost continent of Aldmeris. Let me open a little parenthesis here. In my opinion, the most beautiful theory is this. According to writers like Michael Kirkbride, Aldmeris was never a physical place. It was the unified dream state of the elves before they fractured, a concept representing the ideal version of their collective identity. So, coming from Aldmeris actually means breaking away from it. Calling Kirkbride and his ideas interesting doesn't even do them justice, but really, isn't that explanation fascinating? The Aldmer first landed on the northern shores of Auradon at a spot known as Nine Prow Landing, High Lord Toranaean and his fleet. But this place was no paradise. The island had its own native, horrifying creatures. The Giatus, giant earth elementals, the Iliadi, many-eyed giants, the Welwa, horned savage beasts. Toranaean used ancient magic to slaughter them and tame the wild land. I think this detail is important because at the very core of Altmer culture is a desire to trample over nature and turn it into aesthetics, a literal gardening impulse. On the northwestern coast of Auradon, the ruins of Toranan still stand. Then the Aldmer branched off. The ones who stayed in Summerset became the Altmer. The ones who went to Valenwood became the Bosmer, the Wood Elves. The ones who went to Morrowind became the Chimer and the Dwemer. The ones who went to Cyrodiil became the Aeliid, and the ones who went to High Rock mixed with the Netechumens and produced the Bretons. And a group led by Trinomac decided to side with Lorcan, then got devoured by Boethia and squeezed out the other end, turning into the Orsimer, the Orcs. But always keep this in mind, all of these civilized elven races share the same ancestors, and the Altmer see themselves as the purest, most untainted heirs of that shared origin. They look down even on the Bosmer and the Khajiit. As the First Era went on, two external threats started wearing down Summerset's doorstep. The first were the Slode. If you haven't played Elder Scrolls Online, these guys might be unfamiliar, so who are the Slode? They're the slug-like creatures of the island of Thras. Massive, too fat to even move, but the most terrifying masters of necromancy on the continent. The Slode actually have an interesting claim. Some historical texts say the Slode were originally the true inhabitants of Summerset, and they were displaced when the Altmer arrived. So in a way, these invasions might have been an attempt to take back lost land. Since the Slode couldn't fight physically, they'd use necromancy and hellish machines to try to slaughter the Altmer from time to time. In First Era 1301, though some sources say Second Era 1301, Slode fleets besieged the city of Skywatch and sacked it completely. This event, known as the Sack of Skywatch, is remembered as one of the bloodiest sieges in Tamriel's history. Then, between First Era 2911 and 2917, the 6-year War of the Uvachil broke out. Maybe the greatest example of the destruction the Slode's necromantic armies could unleash on the Altmer. And let's get to the Slode's most famous victory, or rather, their most horrific legacy, the Thracian Plague. In 1st 2260, the Slode unleashed a plague on the continent of Tamriel as a biological weapon. This plague killed more than half the population of Tamriel. Yeah, you heard that right, more than half. It's the single most devastating event in the continent's history, almost outdoing the Oblivion Crisis. In the end, all the mainland nations united in such fury that, for the first and only time, a pan-Tamrielic navy called the All Flags Navy was formed. This navy besieged Thras, brought down the Coral Tower, and thought it had wiped the Slode civilization off the map. But the Slode weren't fully erased. They retreated to their kingdoms under the sea. Keep that in mind, because we'll be coming back to it when we get to the theories. The second enemy, every bit as dangerous as the Slode, the Mermer, the Sea Elves. I'm sure you've heard of these in Elder Scrolls race videos. The Sea Elves live on the continent of Piandinea, far south of Summerset, a swampy chain of islands shrouded behind a veil of mist. During the Aldmeri migration, their ancestor Orgnum was a noble Aldmer who used his financial power to launch a rebellion against the authorities of Aldmeris. That rebellion failed, and Orgnum and his followers were exiled to Piandinea. The Veil of Mist was a measure to make sure they could never come back. But Orgnum wanted to return. He still does. And the Marmer's invasions of Summerset repeated almost every single year throughout the First and Second Eras. As the historian Stem writes, there is not a single year in the First or Second Era in which the Marmer did not raid the coasts of Summerset. In other words, a constant state of war. Orgnum is an immortal wizard king who keeps himself young by performing blood rituals. He uses giant sea serpents as mounts. Just picture it, a Marmer fleet approaching the shore with massive serpents coiling beneath them. A spectacle or a nightmare? These constant external threats, the Slode, the Marmer, and later events like the Yokudan migration, forced the Altmer to build the most powerful, most disciplined navy in history, one that wields magic in the most devastating way imaginable. Personally, I think the role of Altmer seafaring in Tamriel is a lot like the role of the Byzantine Navy or the British Royal Navy in the Mediterranean, in our own world. Not just a defensive tool, but a condition of a civilization's survival. The Pocket Guide says it best. There are villages in the central valleys of Summerset that have never seen battle, but so much blood has been spilled along the coasts that it is a wonder the sand isn't permanently stained crimson. At the end of the First Era, Summerset made a decision. It joined the Second Empire. But the word here matters. Joined. It wasn't conquered, it joined of its own free will. Because the terms of the deal worked out in the Altmer's favor. All outsiders except traders and imperial ambassadors were banned from entering the island, and even those privileged few could only stay in the capital, Alinor. Eric of Guise, Emperor Raymond VI's personal envoy, wrote this in his journals, and in my opinion, it's one of the best lines for summing up the Altmer character. The Altmer pay their tithes to the Empire reliably, but they do it not out of fear of war, but to minimize foreign feet setting foot on their own island, meaning paying taxes is less disgusting to them than coming face to face with foreigners. That, in my opinion, is one of the best single lines for summing up Altmer arrogance. In the middle of the Second Era, in the year 580, one of the most interesting characters in Summerset history steps onto the stage, Queen Éowyn. Anyone who's played Elder Scrolls Online knows her well. And honestly, she's one of the rare characters I actually like and admire in this whole elven nation. Éowyn is a princess who doesn't fit the traditional Altmer mold. As a young woman, she ran away from the palace, traveled the world, got to know different cultures, spent time with the Psijic Order. When her father, Hydaelith, died, she took the throne, and her decisions started shaking the island's society. First, seizing on a dynastic crisis in Valenwood, she united with the Bosmer and the Khajiit and founded the first Aldmeri Dominion. Second decision, she broke Summerset's thousands of years of isolation and opened its borders to outsiders. And right here, a bomb goes off. Because every society has a faction obsessed with purity, and the Altmers is as old as history itself. A radical organization called the Veiled Heritance stepped onto the stage. Its leader was High Kinlady Estre, also known as the Veiled Queen. This group's ideology is clear. Altmer blood must stay pure, foreigners shouldn't even come near the shore. Allying with the Bosmer or Khajiit is treason. And what did the Veiled Heritance try in order to overthrow the queen? You won't believe it. They made a deal with Mehrunes Dagon, the Daedric Prince of Destruction. Just think about that for a second. Knocking on the door of the God of Destruction to overthrow your own queen. That, in my opinion, is the clearest example of just how far Altmer fanaticism can go. In the end, the Vestige, our player character, stops Estre. But the Veiled Heritance's roots were never fully dug out. In my opinion, and a lot of lore fans share this view, the Thalmor of the Fourth Era are essentially a far more successful, far more cunning version of the Veiled Heritance. Same ideology, same purity obsession, same xenophobia, just with a better PR team. Éowyn's dominion started off brilliantly, but it rotted as generations passed. The Second Aldmeri Dominion was reformed in Second Era 830 by Altmer, who seized on a dynastic squabble in Valenwood. And then, as the era was closing, maybe the most shocking event in Tamrielic history took place, the arrival of Tiber Septim. With his vision of uniting the continent, Tiber Septim set his sights on the Summerset he thought was unconquerable. First, he sent his battle mage, Zurin Arctus, to Alinor for peace negotiations. That didn't work, because Septim actually wanted to fight. But beating the Altmer wizards and the Altmer navy with conventional methods was impossible. Honestly, let's be real. Defeating the Altmer army together with their navy was a nearly impossible goal throughout all of history. So Septim looked for the answer somewhere else. He made a deal with Vivec in Morrowind, and in exchange, Vivec handed Numidium over to Septim. Numidium, the brass god, a colossal, reality-bending weapon of mass destruction powered by the heart of Lorkhan. Septim unleashed Numidium on Alinor, and now we come to the most spine-chilling part of the story. According to the surface-level history, Alinor's surrender took 1 hour. 1 hour. A proud Altmer civilization, thousands of years old, brought to its knees in just 60 minutes. But in my opinion, and here we're descending into the deepest layer of the lore, the truth behind that 1 hour might be far darker. Let me tell you about this possible, blood-freezing theory. Numidium carried the heart of Lorkhan, and because it ran on the heart's energy, it was bending time itself. So when it attacked Alinor, it created a dragon break. From the outside, this siege lasted 1 hour, but on the inside, it lasted thousands of years, a time fracture stretching from the Merethic era all the way into the Fifth Era. During that time, Numidium fought a sect of Altmer mages called the Mirror Logicians, simultaneously across every point in time. Just imagine it. An entire generation lived through 1,000 years of war trauma, compressed into the space of 1 hour. The memory of Numidium echoed through the streets of Alinor for thousands of years, but for the rest of us on the outside, it was just 60 minutes. This event, which even the Pocket Guide refers to as the pride of the people has never recovered, left permanent damage on the collective Altmer psyche. Numidium is the reason the Thalmor aren't just after political revenge, but literally a cosmic revenge. Humans, especially the humans they see as the direct descendants of Lorkhan, shattered their thousands of years of existence in a single hour. For an Altmer, that's a debt that can't be settled with an ordinary war. In my opinion, the central secret of Elder Scrolls VI might be hidden, at least partly, in this trauma. I'll get into that in the fan theories section. All right, let's finally come to the present day, the era when Skyrim takes place, the year 4th Era 2-on-1, because this is where it really gets interesting. At the end of the 3rd Era, the Oblivion Crisis broke out. Mehrunes Dagon's armies turned all of Tamriel into a blazing inferno, and the Summerset Isles got hit badly by that invasion too. Daedric invaders ravaged the islands, tens of thousands of elves were slaughtered, and worst of all, the symbol of Altmer civilization, the heart of its soul, the Crystal Tower, fell. This is important because according to the Tower's theory, when the Crystal Tower fell, it wasn't just a building that collapsed, a spike was pulled out of the fabric of Mundus. The fall of the Crystal Tower happened in a strange way. Refugees from all over the island took shelter in the tower because they thought it was impenetrable. The Daedric armies hesitated at first, almost like they were afraid to attack. The Altmer were exultant. The Daedra are afraid of us, they thought. But when night fell, the Daedra brought other Altmer prisoners to the front of the tower, and while they were still alive, tore them apart and ate them with surgical precision. The first thing the people inside the tower heard when they woke up was the screams of their own kind. The tower's wizards fought back, but it wasn't enough. Crystal-like law fell to the ground with all the dignity of a beggar. That metaphor, in my opinion, is the most painful part, because to an Altmer, the concept of a beggar is an existential humiliation. And right in the middle of this chaos, a faction that had been nothing more than a minor political player stepped onto the stage, the Thalmor. The original meaning of Thalmor goes back to the ruling council of Cannon Reeves in the first Aldmeri Dominion during the Second Era. So the name is stolen. But the new Thalmor were ideologically far more radical. They marketed the end of the Oblivion Crisis as their own achievement, when in reality, the one who ended the crisis, and you all know this, was Martin Septim, transforming into the avatar of Akatosh and stopping Dagon in the Imperial City. But before that news reached Summerset, and even after, the Thalmor used this lie for 22 years. They presented themselves as the heroes of the crisis and skillfully manipulated the people's fears. But don't forget, every autocracy creates its own dissidents too. During this rise of the Thalmor, there were honest opponents standing against them. Wizards like Rhinandor the Bold tried to expose the Thalmor's lies. Rhinandor was a veteran who showed real heroism in the defense of the Crystal Tower, and his personal testimony directly contradicted the Thalmor narrative. But the Thalmor pulled a classic totalitarian move. They didn't attack him directly, they assassinated his character. For years, they tangled Rhinandor up in fake scandals, ran smear campaigns, and in the end, made it so the actual government had no choice but to exile a man the public had already turned against. The 4-volume Rising Threat, written by Lathanel of Sunhold, is the most detailed testimony of this whole process. If you haven't read this book, you can find a copy online. It's a priceless record of how the Thalmor came to power. And finally, in the year 4th Era 22, the Thalmor pulled off their coup. A thousands-year-old Altmer monarchy was toppled. The island's name was officially changed to Alinor. The old name, Summerset Isles, didn't reflect the Aldmer spirit enough for the Thalmor. Then the pogroms began. Impure Altmer, half-breeds, foreigners, supporters of the old monarchy, progressive artists, even philosophers who looked at the Thalmor with suspicion. They were systematically hunted down. Those who could escape fled to the city of Sentinel in Hammerfell. But the Thalmor didn't let them go. In 4th Era 42, when these exiled refugees had gathered in a district in Sentinel, Thalmor agents knocked on the door, and magical green fire was hurled inside. Hundreds of exiled Altmer were burned alive. This event went down in history as the Night of Green Fire. In my opinion, it's one of the most shameful and most easily forgotten acts of terror in all of Tamrielic history. Then the Thalmor brought Valenwood, and then elsewhere, under their control one by one through coups and political manipulation, and declared the Third Aldmeri Dominion. History was repeating itself once again. Then came the Great War. The event we all wanted to witness, but never got to witness in any game. Between 4th Era 171 and 175, and look, there's no way I can cover this entire war in a single video. I deal with it piece by piece in pretty much every video on the channel. But in short, the Thalmor invaded Cyrodiil, captured the Imperial City, then got dealt a massive defeat at the Battle of the Red Ring by Titus Mead-Deku's counterattack. In the end, the White Gold Concordat was signed, Talos worship banned, the Blades disbanded, Southern Hammerfell handed over to the Thalmor. On the surface, it doesn't look like a bad outcome for the Thalmor, but the truth is something else. Because here's how I see it, and in my opinion, this is a really important point. The Great War wasn't the great Thalmor victory that a lot of people who played Skyrim assume it was. Just the opposite. Demographically, it was the Thalmor's biggest disaster. Think about it. Halfway through the war, the Thalmor threw their entire reserve army onto the Cyrodiil front. Most of that army was wiped out at the Red Ring. Then in Hammerfell, a 5-year war of attrition broke out against the Redguards. And even though Titus Mead-Tech officially separated Hammerfell from the Empire and basically told them, "You're on your own," the Redguards drove the Thalmor off the continent. With the Second Treaty of Stros-Mackay, the Thalmor pulled out of Hammerfell, meaning they didn't fully get the things they went to war for. Now let's look at it from an Altmer perspective. The Altmer live long, very long, around 1,000 years. Their birth rates are low. Raising a single generation takes centuries. Now think, in the Great War, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of young Altmer died. The parents of those young soldiers are still alive. They'll go on living for hundreds more years after their sons and daughters were buried in the deserts of Cyrodiil. Those children aren't coming back. Those losses are gnawing away at an entire generation. And the Altmer people, during the years when Skyrim takes place, that is 25 to 26 years after the Great War, might still be carrying that grief. Because of the Thalmor's totalitarian police state, their justiciars, the people can't speak up. But silence doesn't mean consent. Silence is the witness to a rage boiling underneath. So this is the real situation in the Summerset Isles during the era when Skyrim takes place. On the surface, it's under absolute Thalmor control. It looks militarily strong. It's manipulating half the continent one way or another. But beneath the surface, the island is rotting, politically, demographically, and psychologically. Mothers who lost their children, supporters of the old monarchy who were exiled or killed, secret progressive cells, and economic depression, and on top of all of it, in my opinion, the most important thing, the empty space where the old Crystal Tower used to stand. The metaphysical heart of the island still isn't beating. Now, these are of course just some speculations. We don't have much information about Summerset in the 5th game, but the more I think about it, the less far-fetched this kind of thing feels. Now we come to the part of the video I have the most fun with, and the most chaotic part too. If Elder Scrolls 6, partly or fully, touches Summerset, this island has so much potential that the player could find hundreds of hours of content. The island has mysteries, radical factions, unexplored areas, ancient powers that survived. Now, I'll go through them one by one as best I can, because each one offers enough material for a side quest chain all on its own. Number 1, the Beautiful. This is a faction that emerged at the end of the 3rd era. But it's not your classic villain, it's far more complex. It started out as a progressive society founded by young artists and thinkers who pushed back against Summerset's obsession with the past. Their philosophy actually sounds reasonable. As long as the Altmer race stays stuck on its traditions and its past, it can't move forward into the future. Okay, that's a hard statement to argue with. But the Beautiful got radicalized over time. Instead of debating ideas at their gatherings, they started smashing ancient statues. Later, these psychopaths even tried to blow up the Crystal Tower. They failed, but history didn't forgive them just for the attempt. And their most striking act, they brutally murdered the daughter of the King of Shimmerine. After that point, the Beautiful weren't an art movement anymore. They were a terrorist organization. In my opinion, the most interesting question here is this. What happened to the Beautiful after the Thalmor came to power? The Thalmor probably hate them ideologically, because the Beautiful want to destroy tradition, while the Thalmor fiercely protect it. So when the Thalmor took power, most of the Beautiful's members were probably slaughtered or driven into hiding. But in my opinion, and a lot of lore fans share this view, the Beautiful didn't disappear entirely. They went underground. Right now, during the Skyrim era, they might be operating as a secret resistance cell, working against the Thalmor across the island. Just think about it. The radical remnants of an old art movement, now waging guerrilla war against a totalitarian regime. It's a pretty ironic situation, but the Elder Scrolls thrives on these ironies anyway. In Elder Scrolls 6, the player could make contact with the Beautiful while fighting the Thalmor. But this won't be an easy alliance, because the Beautiful's methods are morally gray, even pitch black. So would you work with a terrorist organization that bombs works of art and murders innocent aristocrats just to bring down the Thalmor? In my opinion, that's incredible storytelling potential. Number 2, the College of Sapiarchs, that mysterious island off the coast of Leylandril, the highest level academy in Tamriel. Even kings and queens are required to study here. Getting onto the island is only possible with special portals and acceptance letters. The Sapiarchs specialize in extremely advanced niche fields. For example, the Sapiarch of Oceanic Occurrences. And in my opinion, this institution has enormous potential for a 6th or 7th game. Because the Thalmor have brought the Sapiarchs under control, but not entirely, the Sapiarchs are intellectually superior to the Thalmor and they know it. There's probably an opposition inside. Picture this. The player makes contact with a group of sapiarchs, infiltrates the college, steals the secret research scrolls about the Thalmor's plans for the towers, or has to track down missing sapiarchs. Members who died of spider venom got pulled into oblivion portals, or lost their minds in Daedric research. The College of Sapiarchs could be the center of a main quest chain on par with the Mages Guild, maybe even a higher level, more esoteric, more dangerous academic institution compared to the College of Winterhold. The College of Winterhold in Skyrim was a little modest. The Sapiarchs, on the other hand, are Tamriel's MIT Vatican CIA mashup. Number 3, the Coral Splitter Goblins and the Forgotten Slave Revolt. Beneath the island's magnificent white marble architecture lies a truth the Altmer would rather hide. The original natives of this island were goblins. When the Altmer arrived, they ran into the Coral Splitter Goblin tribe living in the caves of King's Haven Pass. At first, this tribe was peaceful, doing agriculture, training griffins and Welwa. The Altmer even traded with them for a while. Then, the classic colonial story, the Altmer betrayed them, enslaved the goblins, and worked them in the mines. Even today, in the desolate corners of the island, deep in King's Haven Pass, you can find goblin skeletons stuffed into barrels, sealed inside greasy casks, forgotten bones. Online players who've gone sky shard hunting will probably remember that scene. Now, think about it. If the Thalmor weaken in the 6th game, with the losses from the Great War, the resistance from within, the economic depression, the goblin tribes in the mountains could reorganize. Under the leadership of a clever goblin warlord, a revolt of the oppressed could break out. And the player would face a tough choice here: support the goblins' centuries-old revenge against the Altmer, or crush the uprising. In my opinion, this kind of moral gray area is the thing the Elder Scrolls does best. Kind of like how Skyrim handled the Forsworn situation, just to remind you. Number 4, the Coral Mystery beneath Cloudrest. I mentioned this earlier. Beneath the city of Cloudrest on the summit of Eaton Near, miles away from the sea, ancient coral remains have been found. This is logically impossible. Coral only forms underwater. So, what happened? One theory, the entire island was once underwater, and the Slode were its true owners. When the Aldmer arrived, history was rewritten, but the coral remains couldn't be erased. Another theory, in a dragon break, time and space got so scrambled that coral from the bottom of the sea ended up on the mountain's peak. Whichever one is true, here's what it means for Elder Scrolls 6. Beneath Cloudrest, somewhere nobody can reach, there are the remains of an ancient Slode resurrection cult or a lost civilization, a claustrophobic necromantic dungeon, like Blackreach in Skyrim, but an underwater-themed version. This could be the scariest, most atmospheric dungeon in the game. Number 5, King Orgnum and the Mormor threat. I mentioned the Mormor back in the middle of the video if you remember, the elven race still waiting in Pyandanea. King Orgnum, the wizard king said to be immortal, is still doing the math on how to take Summerset back. Now think about it. In a potential war, the Thalmor could once again send all their legions to Hammerfell, Cyrodiil, and so on. Because of that, the southern coasts of Summerset could be left defenseless. Port cities like Sunhold have been hit by Mormor attacks many times throughout history. The conditions would be perfect for one more. Just imagine, in the middle of the game, a massive tsunami, then a Mormor fleet appearing on the horizon, warriors riding giant sea serpents crashing onto the shores of Sunhold. This could be one of the most epic scenes the Elder Scrolls has ever shown. And the player, while fighting the Thalmor, would be forced to save the very Thalmor people they hate from a far older and darker evil, the Mormor and the Sea Slode. In terms of moral dilemma, that alone multiplies the value of a game. Number 6, the Psijic Order and the Secret of Artaeum. As I mentioned earlier, the Psijics can manipulate time. Artaeum floats in a pocket dimension, vanished for 350 years, then came back. Their role in a possible future game could be, in my opinion, one of the most fascinating topics. Because the Psijics, they have no sympathy for the Thalmor. More precisely, they're disgusted by the things the Thalmor do. They're devoted to knowledge and to the fundamentals of the universe, not to totalitarian politics. The player could form a deeper alliance with the Psijics, who even show up in the College of Winterhold in Skyrim, get the chance to travel to Artaeum, and maybe even, if Bethesda gets bold, become a Psijic themselves. Stopping time, rewinding it, parallel quests across alternate timelines. The game could get incredibly radical from a mechanics standpoint. As you can see, the material Summerset has appears to be many times more than what Hammerfell and High Rock offer. In my earlier videos, I didn't talk about this many factions, this much side quest material, but Summerset really is a goldmine when it comes to content. Yeah, I know the odds of the 6th game taking place on these lands are slim, but even just dreaming about it is exciting. Now we come to the final and most theoretical part of the video. For over a decade, the Elder Scrolls community has pored over in-game texts, developer interviews, Michael Kirkbride's semi-canonical writings, and leaked documents to develop some incredibly clever theories about the possible main plot of Elder Scrolls VI. And these theories aren't simple conspiracies, they're eschatological scenarios, meaning end-of-the-world scenarios that follow the cosmological rules of the universe to the letter. Let's go through the strongest ones in order. The first theory, and in my opinion the most academic one, the Towers Theory. The source of this theory is a forum post by Michael Kirkbride called The Numantia Intercept. If you haven't read it, I'd absolutely recommend it. The theory can be summed up like this. When Mundus, the physical world, was built at the Dawn Era, it was about to collapse after the Aedra became mortal. To hold it up, a system of cosmic towers and stones that power them was established. Each tower is a spike pinning Mundus to reality. The Adamantine Tower near Hammerfell is the first tower. It's called the Tower. In Cyrodiil, the White Gold Tower, its stone being the Chim El Adabal, the Amulet of Kings. In Morrowind, the Red Tower, its stone being the Heart of Lorkhan. In Skyrim, Snowthroat. In Valenwood, Greensap. In Black Marsh, the Hist. And in Summerset, the Crystal Tower, its stone being Transparent Law. Now here's the crucial part. Let's go through the status of these towers one by one. The Red Tower burned because the Nerevarine destroyed the Heart of Lorkhan. The Red Year ended with the destruction of Vardenfell. The White Gold Tower's stone, the Amulet of Kings. Martin's Septum broke it at the end of the Oblivion Crisis, so that one's not working either. The Crystal Tower fell during the Oblivion Crisis. Greensap's trees don't move anymore, meaning the tower is inactive. Snowthroat is said to be referred to as broken in the prophecy of the Dragonborn. So out of the 8 towers in Tamriel, maybe only the Adamantine Tower is still fully functional. The rest are either destroyed, damaged, or have lost their power. Now here's the question, is this intentional? Is someone deliberately putting out these towers? According to the radical version of the Towers theory, yes, the Thalmor. The Thalmor's real goal isn't just to rule over humanity or ban Talos. Staying faithful to the most fundamental Altmer belief, they want to completely erase Mundus, the prison of Lorkhan. Just imagine, an entire civilization whose existential goal is, quite literally, to unmake reality. Even the banning of Talos worship is part of this grand plan, because Talos functions as a human-sourced cosmic tower stone. If enough humans stop worshipping Talos, Talos's tower power collapses, meaning Cyrodiil gets even weaker. In my opinion, and this is a view shared on a few Reddit forums too, this plan has already partly succeeded. Because even though the Crystal Tower was saved in Elder Scrolls Online, meaning Transparent Law was restored, its fall during the Oblivion Crisis didn't reset the rule. In the 6th game, the player could find themselves right in the middle of this metaphysical war. The apocalypse, literally, is waiting. But I have to add a warning here. The Towers theory is a controversial theory. Let's not forget Pete Hines from Bethesda saying, Kirkbride's writings are not lore unless Bethesda uses them. So the apocalyptic reading might stay a fan interpretation. Maybe Bethesda won't go for a scenario this radical, but in my opinion, the possibility is still there, because some dialogue and books in Skyrim frequently reference the instability of Mundus. The second theory, Numidium 2.0. This one's more concrete, less metaphysical, but in my opinion just as dangerous. Tiber's Septum using Numidium to conquer Alinor in 1 hour. That was literally a trauma for the Altmer. Now think like a Thalmor engineer. The other side got their hands on a god-tier device, they used it, and they beat you. What do? You build the same device. You build a better one. You use it yourself. This theory argues, deep beneath Alinor, maybe in the underground laboratories of the College of Sapiarchs, maybe in the vaults beneath the ruins of the Crystal Tower, the Thalmor are building their own Numidium. They're turning the magical remains of the ruined Crystal Tower, maybe even the residue of the Heart of Lorkhan, into a synthetic god machine. But this time, unlike Tiber Septum's Numidium, the goal isn't to win a war, it's to completely erase the human race from the cosmic frequency, from the timeline, a kind of ontological genocide. The main plot of Elder Scrolls VI, in my opinion, could very well run along this axis. The player starts in Hammerfell or High Rock, discovers the Thalmor's real plan through espionage and diplomacy, and in the finale of the game infiltrates the depths of Summerset to sabotage the construction of this cosmic weapon. Maybe the rebuilding of the Crystal Tower, which had already started in Elder Scrolls Online, is a cover-up for the Thalmor's Numidium factory. Maybe Transparent Law will become the heart of the synthetic god. Maybe the moment the player first sees the silhouette of the brass god in the heart of Alinor, a cold chill will run down their spine. this could be a far more shocking finale than Skyrim's Alduin scene. The third theory, the Dragon Break and the Psijic Prisoner. This theory is a little more meta, but in my opinion, it's brilliant. The main character of an Elder Scrolls game is always the same archetype, the prisoner. In Morrowind, a ship full of prisoners. In Oblivion, a prison cell. In Skyrim, the execution cart at Helgen. You always start as a prisoner. And this isn't for storytelling reasons. It's a cosmic justification. A prisoner is a being whose fate isn't written in advance, who can branch off into alternate timelines. That's why the main hero of the Elder Scrolls is always a prisoner. Now think about it. If the Thalmor are bending the fabric of time, planning new Dragon Break disasters like the ones they created with Numidium, who could stop them? The Psijic Order. Because the Psijics are masters of the mysticism of time. In the sixth game, the Psijics would choose the prisoner, the player character. They'd teach them a new time-bending mechanic, something like the classic Thuum or sword singing. Maybe abilities like time stop, borrowed time, even traveling across parallel timelines. And the player, as a classic prisoner chosen one archetype, would bring down the Thalmor's time scheme. A different structure from Skyrim's Dragonborn, but with the same cosmic significance. So in conclusion, which one do you think is most likely? In my opinion, the most likely scenario is this. Elder Scrolls 6 will have Hammerfell or a Hammerfell High rock combination as its main setting. But the main story will definitely be built around the showdown with the Thalmor. And in the later stages of the game, maybe in the final act, the player gets sent to Summerset with a reconnaissance unit. Maybe in the city of Alinor, maybe at the College of Sapiarchs, maybe in the ruins of the Crystal Tower, maybe as a DLC. But Summerset, one way or another, is definitely going to show up. If not in the sixth game, then in the next one. Because this story, the Fourth Era saga of the Elder Scrolls, can't be completed without the defeat of the Thalmor, and the Thalmor can be defeated at their most exposed, in their own homeland, among their own people. And that brings us to the end of the video. I hope that after this long lore journey, I've been able to give you a deep picture of the Summerset Isles, the Altmer, and their potential role in Elder Scrolls 6. Honestly, getting to experience the Summerset Isles for the first time in Elder Scrolls Online was an amazing feeling. And now, with evolving game technology and a more epic story, I'd love to step onto these lands of aesthetic architecture and religious fanaticism all over again. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video. And if the hype option shows up under the video, don't forget to hype it either. Despite the negative comments about my narration, I'm going to keep making content in the field I love. I'm trying everything within my means, and I'm sharing my thoughts about the Elder Scrolls, the details I love, and the things I know with all of you. So I just want to announce right here that I won't be paying any attention to the people who sometimes leave nasty comments about the narration. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with the Towers theory? How strong do you think the odds of Numidium 2.0 are? Would you have wanted the Beautiful to make a comeback in the sixth game? And most importantly, do you think there's a chance Elder Scrolls 6 takes place partly or fully in Summerset? I really enjoy these kinds of discussions, and honestly, reading your comments is my favorite part of this channel. This time of year, I love making Elder Scrolls content even more. I'm going to keep pushing this series forward, shining a light on every province of Tamriel, every complex character, every hidden theory. You can always give me ideas and suggest topics for future videos. All my strength comes from your support, truly. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves, and may Talos be with you. In the southwest of the continent of Tamriel, there's a land where the sunlight never touches the ground, where no road can be drawn on a map, where the trees climb a mile into the sky and carry whole cities up among the clouds. Behind this green wall, hidden behind swamps, poisonous vines, and massive roots, lives a people who believe they came from the sap of the trees, who'd rather go hungry than eat anything but meat, yet won't let a single carcass hit the ground before they devour it. This is Valenwood, and here, nature isn't just scenery. It's a contract signed with a god himself. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm here with a video that's been sitting in the back of my mind for a long time, and honestly, one of the ones I've been most excited to make. In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into one of the strangest, wildest, and, in my opinion, most misunderstood provinces in all of Tamriel, Valenwood, the homeland of the Wood Elves, the Bosmer. And we're not going to settle for some dry history lesson. We'll start with these people's formless origins back in the Dawn Era, move through that terrifying green pact they signed with Y'ffre, the cannibalism taboos, the wild hunt ritual that drowns the world in blood, the state they're in today crushed under the Thalmor's boot during Skyrim's era, and most importantly, the part I'm most excited about, the strongest fan theories the community has come up with about what it would mean if Valenwood turned out to be the main setting of Elder Scrolls VI. There's a reason I'm picking this topic right now. Most of the leaks in the trailer might still be pointing at Hammerfell. We talked about that at length in my Hammerfell video already. But back in 2014, a Bethesda document leaked, the one everybody called fake at the time, and inside, it was a code name: Project Greenheart. Greenheart is the name of an actual forest city on Valenwood's southern coast, and on top of that, the other names in that same document, Fallout 4, Nuka World, all came true one by one over the years. Some fans also think Todd Howard's comment that Elder Scrolls VI will have more trees is pointing right at Valenwood. So for all these reasons, if you ask me, even today, Valenwood is a much more serious candidate than most people assume. By the end of this video, we'll see together why I think that. Before we get into it, if you're enjoying this content, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And if that hype button shows up for you, hyping the video would be a huge help to me. Without wasting any more of your time or boring you any longer, let's get into the topic. Enjoy the video. Valenwood was one of the places that got me the most excited the first time I visited it in Elder Scrolls Online. But to understand Valenwood, we first have to understand the people who live there. And to understand the Bosmer, we have to start the story from the very beginning, literally from creation itself. Because the Wood Elves aren't just a people who migrated from one place to another like the other races in Tamriel, they're a people who were shaped into form by a god's song. Back in the Dawn era, the universe hadn't solidified yet. Nothing had a fixed form. A plant could turn into an animal in an instant, an animal into a rock. The boundaries of a body would melt and reshape moment to moment. In Bosmer belief, this chaotic, formless state has a name: the Ooze. Just imagine it, constantly turning into something else, never being able to be you, stuck forever in a kind of fluid torment. Khajiit legends describe the same scene: the forest people, Nirn's most beloved children, suffering as they shifted from shape to shape. And this is where the forest god Y'ffre steps in. By singing the green songs, Y'ffre first gave a fixed form to what we call the green, meaning all of Valenwood's forest, its plant life, its animals. Then he looked at the formless forest people and gave them a permanent body. And that's how the Bosmer were born. There's a beautiful detail here you'll want to keep in mind. Out of that same formless people, the ones who got their form from Azura's hand became the Khajiit, and the ones who got theirs from Y'ffre's hand became the Bosmer. So the Catfolk and the Wood Elves are, at the deepest level, siblings. Remember that when we get to the 5-year war, because in that war, these siblings are going to eat each other. But Y'ffre doesn't give this form away for free. He sets a price. And right here is where that contract is born, the one that sits at the foundation of all of Valenwood's history, its culture, even its architecture, the Green Pact. Think of it like this. It's like a religion's 10 commandments, like a monastic vow, even like the kosher or halal rules in our own world, a sacred contract that seeped into every single second of these people's daily lives, except much, much more brutal. Let me roughly walk you through the rules of this Green Pact, which honestly strikes me as a pretty radical religious belief. 1. Inside Valenwood's borders, a Bosmer can't pluck a single leaf, can't cut down a tree, can't plow a field, can't eat anything plant-based. Not fruit, not vegetables, not grain. This turns them into obligate carnivores. 2, and in my opinion the most disturbing clause, the meat mandate. Wasting the meat of something you've hunted or killed in battle is forbidden. You have to consume it completely within 3 days. And yes, that includes the enemies you kill in battle. Human, elf, monster, doesn't matter. Bosmer warriors fast for days before a big battle, because after the victory, a feast is waiting for them. Bones become weapons, intestines become bowstrings, and skulls become home decor. Nothing gets wasted. There's a terrifying cannibalism here, yeah, but to them, it's a sacred obligation. So if they can't cut down trees, you might ask, how do they build those magnificent forest cities? This is where the genius part kicks in. The pact only protects Valenwood's own forest. Using wood imported from outside is totally fine. But here's the real trick. Shamans called green speakers, through days-long rhythmic chants. We call this pact magic. Guide living trees with magic. Branches twist together into a staircase, roots turn into a bridge, the trunk of an oak opens up into an entire palace. So instead of cutting the tree down, the Bosmers sing to it about what it should become. If you ask me, this is one of the most elegant cultural solutions in the entire Elder Scrolls universe. Maybe if we had a law of physics like this in our own world, our surroundings would look a whole lot different, especially my own country. We've got a serious problem with bulldozing the greenery and paving everything over with concrete. Anyway, let's not get off track. And finally, let me tell you what happens if you break this pact, because this part is a little hair-raising. According to Bosmer belief, when a Bosmer who breaks the rules dies, they lose that sacred form Yennefer gave them and return forever to the ooze, that formless, never-ending torment. So for a Bosmer, the Green Pact isn't just a tradition, it's the one nail holding their very existence together. Now keep that idea in mind, because in a minute, we're going to get to that terrifying ritual where an entire people pulls that nail out on purpose. Now let's look at the map. Valenwood is a massive peninsula province in the southwest of Cyrodiil, bordering the Colovia region to the west of Elsewhere, with a coastline on the Abyssinian Sea. But this simple geographic description is going to seem like it tells you nothing, because Valenwood's real character doesn't start on the map, it starts on the ground. This place isn't just a forest, it's a giant beast that digests the armies that walk into it. The province is covered end to end with swamps, poisonous vines, massive roots, and tree canopies that block out the sun completely. There are basically no proper Imperial standard roads. The forest swallows whatever paths do exist within a few seasons. The military consequence of this is crystal clear. Heavy cavalry, siege weapons, supply wagons, none of them move through this forest. Send an Imperial legion into Valenwood, and you'll slowly melt away in the dark, picked off by arrows coming from the tops of the trees, never even seeing your enemy. Think of the guerrilla warfare in the jungles of Vietnam in our own world. The Bosmer have been doing exactly that for thousands of years. They're hands down the best archers, the best trackers in all of Tamriel. I'm sure all of you have played an archer with a Bosmer character in Skyrim at some point. And since they can't light fires at night either, because that's against the Green Pact, they light their way with glowing mushrooms, glowing moss, and little fireflies called torch bugs. Just picture it, in the middle of the night, an entire forest glowing with a cold green light. This endless land is divided into 4 main regions: Gratwood, Greenshade, Malabal Tor, and Reaper's March. Gratwood is the heart of the province, and the capital, Elden Root, is here, an ancient oak reaching up to the sky, with an entire city built inside it. Every time I see this giant oak, I'm just blown away by how epic it is. For some reason, this massive structure gives me the same epic feeling as those enormous buildings of Soviet brutalism. Malabal Tor is home to Sylvanar, the people's spiritual center. I'll come back to that in a bit, because Sylvanar is no ordinary city. And Reaper's March, since it borders both Cyrodiil and Elsewhere, is constantly getting raided. A crossroads where Khajiit, Imperial, and Bosmer cultures all blend together. The bloodiest border region of the province. But Valenwood's real marvel isn't a city, it's a walking city. Falinesti, a massive grat oak. A giant oak a mile tall, touching the clouds, carrying thousands of homes, palaces, and markets among its branches. And for thousands of years, this city walked through Valenwood with the seasons, migrating from one corner of the province to another with its roots, its trunk, and the whole population living on top of it. Imagine a city that walks, and then toward the end of the Third Era, for the first time in its history, Falinesti stopped. It put down roots and never moved again. Why? Well, this is one of the biggest unanswered mysteries in the whole series. And in the theories section, we'll see that this stopping might actually be the sign of a cosmic catastrophe. By the way, I don't have any footage of Falinesti to show you, because by the time Elder Scrolls Online takes place, the city has mysteriously vanished. The fauna of the forest is just as strange as its flora. Swarms of giant wasps, forest spirits called spriggans, giant sentient tigers immune to forest poisons, and even forest mammoths roaming among the trees. And the population isn't just Bosmer. Deep in the forest live the wood orcs, who couldn't care less about the Green Pact, who cut down trees, who often clash with the elves but secretly sell them wood. There are centaurs, and the most fun one, in my opinion, the Imga. These gorilla-like ape men idolize the high elves, the Altmer. They try to dress in noble clothes like them, wear perfume, and speak politely. Think of that over-the-top cultural mimicry in our own world. In fact, it's believed that Prophet Maruk, the founder of the Alessian order that launched a holy war against humans in the First Era, was an Imga. So the figure who started one of the biggest religious movements in Tamriel's history might have been an ape man who wanted to be an Altmer. That right there is the absurd but fantastic beauty of Elder Scrolls. I absolutely love it. Now let's head into the historical eras and look at what the region went through over time. Valenwood's history, just like that of the other provinces in Tamriel, is full of brutality, famine, and hardship. This forest has been the stage for invasions, plagues, dynastic wars, and apocalypses brought on by its own people for ages. Let's walk through this timeline quickly because I think you can only understand Valenwood's tragedy today if you know its past. It all begins in the very first year of the First Era. King Eplier Cameron unites the Bosmer clans, scattered across every corner of the forest, constantly fighting each other, under a single banner, and founds the Cameron dynasty. This is such an important event that every scholar in Tamriel accepts this unification as the official start of the First Era. Think about it. An era begins not with the death of an emperor or an invasion, but with the birth of a forest kingdom. Civilization's first step came out of an interesting place. The first big spark flies in 369. Skyrim's High King Borgus plans to ally with the Alessian Empire in Cyrodiil to wage all-out war on Valenwood and drive the Wood Elves out of their land. In my opinion, this was a pretty amateur move, because the Bosmer's answer turns out to be one of the most terrifying weapons in history. For the first time, right here, they call upon the Wild Hunt, that horrifying nuclear-level power. This is genuinely a power on par with nuclear missiles in our world. The Bosmer, mutated by the Wild Hunt, tear Borgus to pieces, and his death drags Skyrim into a war of succession that lasts a full 50 years. So the Bosmer, by killing one king, bury another province in half a century of civil war. Those of you who watched my Skyrim Civil War video will remember what that kind of instability meant for Skyrim. Independence lasts more than 2,000 years until the deadly Thracian plague tears through the province in the 2200s of the First Era. The plague collapses Valenwood's economic and military resilience. The Riemann Empire, the Second Empire, seizes on this weakness and annexes the province. Here's the interesting thing. The Riemann dynasty actually treats the Bosmer well, and the forest cities flourish during this period. But no matter what, the Bosmer always remain an inward-looking people. When the Second Empire collapses, Valenwood becomes free again, but this time, the Cameron dynasty loses its authority because imperial rule had weakened the mainstream powers here. As a result, intertribal civil wars, Khajiit raids, and Colovian border incursions plunged the province into instability. Then, in Second Era 582, during those famous alliance wars you know from Elder Scrolls Online, Valenwood unites with the Altmer of Summerset and the Khajiit of Elsewhere to form the First Aldmeri Dominion. In this alliance led by Queen Erin, Valenwood's massive city of Elden Root is chosen as the capital, so for a moment, Valenwood becomes the heart of the entire elf-centered alliance. Keep that in mind too, because this detail is critical to understanding Valenwood's geopolitical importance. By the way, for the history of Queen Erin and the Aldmeri Dominion, I highly recommend watching the videos I made about the Thalmor. I covered these topics in a lot of detail over there. The name that comes after Riemann and Erin is probably the biggest name in all of Tamriel, Tiber Septim. He crushes the Second Aldmeri Dominion with that legendary brass god, Numidium, and Valenwood bows to the Third Empire, otherwise known as the Septim Empire. The Cameron kings stay on the throne symbolically, but the province withdraws into a deep political isolation. And this isolation is shattered by one of the greatest disasters of the Third Era, the Cameron usurper. A claimant named Haemon Cameron, with an army of the undead, mercenaries, and Daedra, seizes Valenwood in 3rd 249. In just 2 years, he subdues the entire province with an iron fist. And then, he doesn't stop. He marches his armies north, onto the coasts of High Rock and Hammerfell. He's only barely stopped by High Rock's combined kingdom navies at the Battle of Firewaves in 3rd 267. We talked about that alliance in my High Rock video. If you ask me, the story of the Cameron usurper is the clearest proof of just how dangerous a source of power Valenwood can be. With the right leader and the right army, this forest can cut straight through all of Western Tamriel. The end of the Third Era is full of pain for the Bosmer. Between 395 and 3989, the 5-year war with Elsewhere triggered by a massacre in the border city of Torval, turns into an outright tragedy for the Bosmer. Remember, I told you that when you take the creation myths into account, the Bosmer and Khajiit are siblings at the deepest level. Well, in this war, those two siblings cut each other's throats. The Bosmer call upon the Wild Hunt again, but the final victory goes to Elsewhere. After that comes the greatest invasion in Tamriel's history, the Oblivion Crisis. Mehrunes Dagon's forces lay siege to Valenwood, and right at the center of the crisis, there's an antagonist of Bosmer descent, Mankar Cameron. To protect Valenwood, the Wild Hunt is unleashed once more, and the forest is drenched in blood again. So as it enters the Fourth Era, Valenwood is the land of an exhausted, weary people who've lived through their own apocalypse over and over. Now, let's ask this question. Why does Valenwood get invaded so often? Why does everyone have their eye on this forest? The answer is in geopolitics. Let's take another look at the map for a second. Valenwood sits on the southwest flank of Cyrodiil. To its north is the center of the Human Empire. To its east is Elsewhere, and to its west, by sea, is Summerset. So, whoever controls Valenwood threatens Cyrodiil's soft underbelly and holds the land bridge between Summerset and Elsewhere at the same time. Remember why the first Aldmeri Dominion's capital was Elden Rood? Valenwood is an Elf Alliance's foothold on the continent, its springboard. Honestly, if you ask me, Valenwood is one of the most underrated strategic properties in Tamriel. I'm always stressing how important geopolitics is in the Elder Scrolls universe. And that's exactly why, after the Oblivion Crisis, the ultranationalist Thalmor, who seized power in Summerset, picked Valenwood as the first target of their expansionism. In 4th Era 29, Thalmor-backed Bosmer sympathizers stage a bloody coup against the weakened Cameron government. The Imperial forces are driven out, and Valenwood officially comes under the control of the 3rd Aldmeri Dominion. Notice this, the Thalmor don't do this with an invasion, but from the inside, through a puppet government. And this coup method is their signature, of course. Kind of like the same things American intelligence did in the Middle East and South America, you know. Now, let's look at 4th Era 201, when Skyrim takes place, because the real darkness is here. On the surface, Valenwood looks like a loyal part of the Dominion, but we can say there's a nightmare underneath. Think about it. The Thalmor have an ideology that champions genetic purity and elven supremacy. The Bosmer, on the other hand, are a chaotic, free-spirited, nature-fused cannibal people. Even though these two cultures come from the same ancestor, they're now complete opposites. To the Thalmor, the Bosmer aren't allies. They're a wild subject population that needs to be controlled. And the Thalmor rule them in exactly that way, through fear. As far as we know, during Skyrim's time period, the Thalmor are carrying out systematic massacres they call purges in Valenwood. They wipe out pro-imperial clans, dissidents, or families that just don't toe the Thalmor line. But they don't do it with a declaration of war, they do it with fake fires, murders dressed up as accidents by turning the tribes against each other. Those of you who've played Skyrim actually see this pain directly. Malborn, who we meet in the diplomatic immunity quest. According to what Delphine tells us, Malborn's entire family was slaughtered in one of the Thalmor's secret purges in Valenwood, that quiet, timid elf. He's actually the survivor of a genocide. And here's where one of the cleverest pieces of lore, in my opinion, comes into play. If something attacks Valenwood, the Bosmer call the Wild Hunt, right? So why don't they start a whole wild hunt against the Thalmor's cruelty? The answer is terrifyingly logical, because the Thalmor never create that feeling of a total existential threat that would trigger a wild hunt. They localize the rebellions, quietly wipe out a village, lose a family in a fire, and drown the people in disinformation through puppet Bosmer rulers. So, the trigger for the Wild Hunt is panic and mass terror. The Thalmor, meanwhile, spread the terror drop by drop without anyone noticing. It's hard to find a better example of how a totalitarian regime numbs its own people. I love this cleverly written story. Still, the resistance isn't completely dead. If you look at the Thalmor dossier documents in Skyrim, especially Esbern's, you'll see that the Imperial Intelligence Agency, the Blades, was running secret operations against the Thalmor inside Valenwood. According to the documents, the mastermind behind one of the operations that dealt the Thalmor their heaviest losses in Valenwood, the Phalanesti incident, was none other than our old lore master Esbern himself. The details stay secret, but in all likelihood, Esbern organized a Bosmer resistance cell in that Walking Oak city, and the Thalmor set part of the city on fire to crush the rebellion. So maybe Malborn's family died right there. If you ask me, this is a golden thread for Elder Scrolls 6. Now, we've reached what I think is the most fun part of the video. We're going to riff on fan theories. If Elder Scrolls 6, whether fully or partially, touches Valenwood, this forest has so much story potential that players could find hundreds of hours of content here. Just like I said in my Summerset Isles video, because in every corner, there's a mystery, a radical faction, a moral dilemma. Let's go through them one by one. You'll see that each one is enough for a quest chain all on its own. The first element we'll cover is the freezing of Phalanesti. We said that this mile-tall Walking Oak city stopped moving and put down roots shortly before the Oblivion Crisis. Why? Nobody knows for sure. Some say the metaphysical energy at the heart of the tree ran out. Others say Mankar Cameron's Daedric rituals poisoned the tree. For Elder Scrolls 6, what this means is magnificent. The player could explore this frozen giant city, a vertical, claustrophobic, atmospheric dungeon stretching from the dark caves in the roots all the way to the abandoned palaces at the summit. The quest could be built around cleansing the corruption in the tree's roots, reawakening the ancient pact magic that lets it walk, or tearing out the Thalmor military bases nested in the tree's trunk. The thought of fighting to make an entire city walk again conjures up a pretty epic gaming dream. And if you consider that this city also serves as a tower, things turn into a full-blown metaphysical mystery. Number 2, the Sylvanar and the Green Lady. These two are, in my opinion, the most poetic piece of lore in Valenwood. The Sylvanar is a living avatar representing the soul, the mind, and the diplomacy of the Bosmer people. Whatever the people feel, he feels it too. All of the Bosmer's pain is his pain. The Green Lady is the exact opposite, the embodiment of the forest's ferocity, its savagery, the Bosmer's primal physical strength. Every generation, these two marry in a sacred ceremony called the hand fasting. Mind and savagery, diplomacy and claw balance this way. And the most striking part, if one of them is killed, the other loses their mind and fights like a monster until they've destroyed the killers. Now, combine this with the Thalmor. What if the Thalmor try to install a puppet Sylvanar who'll bow to their ideology? What if they capture the real Green Lady and try to turn the forest's primal power into a weapon for the Dominion? The player could be forced to find the real Sylvanar, protect them from assassins, and secure that mystical ceremony against the Thalmor, a multi-layered, deeply political quest chain. And I'm certain that if the 6th game takes place in Valenwood, at least one of the side quests will be about this. Another piece of content we've got is the Vine Dusk Rangers. Here's a ready-made assassin guild. These are Valenwood's most dangerous guerrilla fighters, its shadow intelligence agents, the ghosts of the forest. They were born in the bloody border wars with the Khajiit, and for the sake of pragmatism, they've been exempted from some of the Green Pack's rules. They don't have to eat enemy corpses, and they can even burn the forest if they have to. And most importantly, they hate the Thalmor and Altmer fascism. Think of them like the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim, or the Morag Tong in Morrowind, except the difference is that this one is a political resistance organization. In Elder Scrolls 6, the player could join the Vine Dusk Rangers, assassinate Thalmor commanders, set ambushes deep in the forest, and free Valenwood from the inside. Honestly, if you ask me, not putting this faction in the game would be an outright crime. When I think about how much fun I had, even in the Dark Brotherhood, joining a guild like this and waging a guerrilla campaign in a forested area, no less, would be incredible. Number 4, the Wilder King, the Wild King. In the Greenshade region, there's a mortal figure who can shape nature however he wishes, considered Yifra's reflection in the world. He's actually a mortal body merged with the spirit of the land, a mantle, meaning a sacred burden that gets passed on. When the time comes, this burden passes to someone else. In fact, in Elder Scrolls Online, we saw it pass to an Altmer woman named Araneus. Just imagine the divine power of nature in a mortal body. In Elder Scrolls 6, the player could be brought before the Wilder King's underground court, fight giant forest spirits, or have to stop the Thalmor's attempt to corrupt the god of the forest. Finally, I want to touch on the Black Sap Rebellion and the Wood Orcs. The Black Sap faction, the more radical, anti-imperial wing of Bosmer culture, which rebelled even against the first Aldmeri Dominion in the past, might have regrouped in the dark corners of the forest against Thalmor rule. Likewise, the Wood Orcs, who don't care about the Green Pact at all, are the most natural ideological enemies of the Thalmor's Elven Purity ideology. In Elder Scrolls VI, the player could unite the Wood Orc tribes or win the support of the Black Sap fanatics and light the fire of rebellion against the Dominion. But it won't be easy, because these allies' methods are morally gray. And in my opinion, that's exactly what Elder Scrolls does best, leaving you alone with choices where you can't be a clean hero. Remember my video where I covered Skyrim's Forsworn issue? There was the same gray area there. These gray areas are what turned us into fans of this series in the first place. We went through the same thing in Morrowind, in Skyrim, and in Oblivion too. And here we are at the final part of the video. From here on, this is the territory of speculation and dreams. For years now, the community has produced incredibly clever theories about Valenwood by poring over in-game texts, developer interviews, and leaks. I want to thank all the fans who put their effort into these theories. Now, I want to share the 3 strongest of them with you, one by one. The first theory is Project Greenheart. I mentioned it in the intro, but now let's dig deeper. Back in 2014, there was a document allegedly leaked from inside Bethesda. At the time, it got branded fake and a troll. On that document, in a list of projects employees were forbidden from mentioning in public, it said Fallout 4, Boston Project, Nuka World, and Project Greenheart. Now think about it. Everything else on that list came true one by one over the years. Fallout 4 really took place in Boston, and Nuka World really came out. So what about Greenheart? Greenheart is the name of an ancient forest city on Valenwood's southern coast. So a document people called fake put a code name pointing at Valenwood right next to all those names that turned out to be true. Add to that the fact that Todd Howard keeps stressing massive, dense forest built with photogrammetry technology in his next-gen demos. If you ask me, this is the most solid concrete argument that's been put forward in Valenwood's favor. But there's also this. The people who say Project Greenheart is fake have strong arguments too. Some say it was already obvious back in the 3rd game that Fallout 4 would take place in Boston, and Nuka World is read as Bethesda's nod to the prankster who made this fake leak. The second theory, the most metaphysical one, the towers and the silencing of green sap. Let me quickly remind you of the towers theory I've touched on in other videos. Mundus, the physical world, is held up by magical towers that keep oblivion from swallowing it. The first tower, Adamantine, was built by the gods. The others were built by the elves in the Merethic era. Now let's count them off one by one. The red tower, known as Red Mountain, burned out in Morrowind. The crystal tower fell in Summerset during the Oblivion Crisis. The white gold is deactivated in Cyrodiil. Snowthroat was shaken by the Civil War in Skyrim. Valenwood's tower, Greensap. This tower is those massive walking grat oaks themselves, and it's stone. Here's the delicious part, is the perchance acorn that the Ayleid Archmage Anumeral manipulated. Now, make the crucial connection. Falinesti, for the first time in its history, stopped walking, put down roots, and froze. Most lore enthusiasts read this exactly like this. The Greensap Tower was deactivated, its energy was cut off, or its stone was stolen. In other words, Valenwood's metaphysical heart stopped beating. So, is this a coincidence? According to the radical version of the Towers theory, no. This is the Thalmor's doing. I've mentioned it many times before. The people who support this theory argue that the Thalmor's real goal isn't just to rule over humanity or ban Talos, but staying true to the most fundamental Altmer belief, to completely tear down Mundus, reality itself, Lorcan's prison, to snuff out the towers one by one and return to their old immortal spiritual forms. If that's true, Valenwood and Greensap are right at the center of this cosmic chess game. Elder Scrolls VI's story could be built around the player stopping the Thalmor from completely destroying Greensap, or finding the tower's stone, that perchance acorn, and reawakening its power. But let me add a warning here. The Towers theory is controversial. It often rests on semi-canonical texts, and Bethesda has never officially confirmed it. So take it not as a certainty, but as a strong possibility. The third theory, and in my opinion, the darkest and most exciting one, Kurt Kuhlman's vision and the Empire Strikes Back scenario. Kuhlman is someone who worked as Bethesda's lead lore master for years. In an interview, he said that for the future of the series, he imagined a scenario just like in the Star Wars film, that gloomy middle of the trilogy, where the bad guys are at the peak of their power and the good guys take heavy blows. According to this vision, Elder Scrolls VI should open with the Dominion's overwhelming dominance. The classic chosen hero shows up and saves the world single-handedly. Mold should be shattered. In Kuhlman's draft, the player can't defeat the giant Thalmor machine. Instead, they secretly rescue and spirit away the last heir of the defeated resistance. Maybe a hidden Cameron prince or someone of Septim blood. A bittersweet, tragic ending, and the groundwork for a resistance in the next game. As you know, I think a 7th game is inevitable too, though I don't know if I'll get to see it in my own lifetime. Now combine this last theory with Valenwood's geography. Imagine, the game starts in this forest under the Thalmor's boot. Around you are fake fires, families quietly disappearing, puppet rulers, a people gone silent out of fear. You, alongside the Vinedusk Rangers, are waging a hopeless guerrilla war in the shadow of the trees. You want to call the Wild Hunt, but you just can't spark that collective courage to trigger it because the Thalmor spread the terror drop by drop. And at the end of the game, instead of toppling the Thalmor, you only rescue and spirit away a single spark. Maybe a hidden Cameron prince. If you ask me, this would be a far more shocking, far more mature story than Skyrim's Alduin finale. Kuhlman's imagined dark tone and Valenwood's suffocating forest are, honestly, a perfect match. Now, figuring you're curious about my own take, let me share it with you. I'll be honest, the most likely scenario is that Elder Scrolls VI's main setting is Hammerfell, or a Hammerfell high rock combination. The leaks and the trailer point to that, but the game's main story is going to be built sooner or later on the reckoning with the Thalmor. And that reckoning might force us to stop by Valenwood, the Dominion's most vital limb, maybe with a scouting party, maybe in the roots of frozen Falinesti, maybe as a DLC, but I can't imagine an Elder Scrolls series without Valenwood, because this forest's story, the story of a people's contract with their own god, the silencing of a tower and a rebellion smoldering under an empire's boot, isn't over yet. And that's where I'll wrap it up. I hope that by the end of this journey, you've gotten a deep picture of Valenwood, the Bosmer, and their possible role in Elder Scrolls VI. From the outside, this forest might look like nothing but impassable, terrifying wilderness. But behind that green wall lies a people shaped into form by a god song, an apocalyptic ritual that can drown the world in blood, the secret of a walking city, and a rage smoldering against an empire. In my opinion, Valenwood taking the stage in the 6th game could give birth to the strangest, most chaotic, and boldest game in the series. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and to subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to share your thoughts with me in the comments. Do you agree with the Tower's theory? What do you think made Falinesti stop? Would you want to see Kuhlman's gloomy Empire Strikes Back scenario? And most importantly, do you think TES VI will take place in Valenwood, partly or entirely? Even though none of these questions can be answered for sure, throwing ideas out there is the most fun part of all this. Until we meet again, may Talos be with you.